Chapter 1445. As soon as Xiao Su returned to the camp, Turin followed closely behind. Originally, he had something to report, but seeing his master's gloomy face, he couldn't help but frown and ask, "Master, didn't you go to find the fourth prince just now? Did something happen?" Could it be that that person was looking for trouble with his master? When he thought of this, a burst of anger came out from his heart. Xiao Su untied his cloak, and Turin immediately stepped forward to take it. Only then did he return to the main seat and sit down. His expression was serious, and there were dark clouds in his eyes that couldn't be dispersed. Xiao Ran came to find this prince to take the command token of the new army. How can he be so shameless? Turin's eyes widened. Although the Southern Song army had been defeated, the alliance of the three armies hadn't completely collapsed, and he actually couldn't wait to seize power. "It's the emperor's idea," Xiao Su coldly said. Turin took a deep breath and calmed himself down. "Then what does master plan to do? This is the army that we have painstakingly trained. Although their fighting strength isn't as strong as the army that we have trained for 5 years, at least they have the appearance. If we train them carefully, they won't be underestimated in the future. This prince has already agreed to hand them over." Xiao Su bent his finger and tapped rhythmically on the table, as if he was thinking about something. Turin was surprised. "Master, aren't you worried that after they get the command token, they will turn around and suppress us?" When he thought of the people that he had trained to deal with him in the end, even thinking about it made him feel stifled. Xiao Su's eyes flashed coldly. That's what this prince is worried about. However, these people were recruited by this prince in the name of driving out the enemy. If this prince tries his best to keep them, when the time comes for us to truly shed all pretense of cordiality, these people won't be of any help. Instead, they'll become useless. Since we've already anticipated the future, it's better to directly remove them. Turin suddenly woke up. He almost forgot that they would have to fight against the royal family sooner or later. These new soldiers were full of enthusiasm to fight against foreign enemies. If they were later recruited by the master, they might be incited to turn against the master and cause trouble. That would be a real headache. So this is a hot potato for us. That's why the emperor dared to look for me at this time. He must have considered this point, and I won't let them stay. Although his imperial father was headstrong, self-opinionated and suspicious, he was more farsighted than anyone else in some matters. After all, a person who could sit on the throne for decades also had means. Although I understand that, I'm still unwilling to give up on the military strength that we've painstakingly gathered and let the enemy take advantage of us so easily. Ever since the relationship between his master and the royal family broke, Shaolai cavalry was no longer so restrained. They were also not afraid of being caught by others. Even Turin did not hold back anymore. Xiao Su saw all these changes. The reason he thought of recruiting soldiers was because there was a huge disparity in manpower between the enemy and his side. He had no choice but to do so. Although he ended up benefiting others, if he was given another chance, he would still choose to do so. He was still clear about which was more important, personal grudges and the common people. This decision can't be changed, but we will definitely seek revenge in the future. Xiao Su's tone was the same as usual, but those who were familiar with him knew that he was angry. Turin nodded heavily. Xiao Su frowned and put this matter aside. Then he raised his eyes and asked, "Why are you looking for me?" After his master's reminder, Turin remembered the reason and immediately replied. After General Wu Lin led the soldiers out, he did not send back any news. Logically speaking, General Wu Lin should have arrived at the place today. Regardless of whether he started the operation or not, he should have sent a message. This subordinate wants to ask if we should send someone to take a look. Xiao Su nodded. Although Wu Lin had a straightforward personality, he still had a sense of propriety. Now that there was no news, it was normal for Turin to be worried. Just as he was about to agree to Turin's suggestion, he suddenly stood up. "Oh no, we've fallen into a trap." Turin was shocked by his master's action. After hearing his master's words clearly, his face tensed up. "Master, are you saying that something happened to General Wu?" Xiao Su squeezed out the words from between his teeth. "There's no Nansong remnant at all. We've been deceived. Seizing the military order, luring the tiger away from the mountain, and defeating them one by one. What a good plan! This was not a flawless plan. If it had been any other time, it would have been seen through at a glance. However, he and Xiao Ran's men had been injured in this battle. Moreover, Junlan had not been settled yet. He had not expected Xiao Ran to attack him at this time. Or rather, he had lowered his guard. He had not expected that the emperor would so brazenly burn the bridge after crossing it. Indeed, the most unpredictable thing was the heart of a ruler. After learning the truth, Turin was a little flustered. However, he quickly calmed down. Then what should we do? General Wu has left with half of his men. We only have less than 30,000 men left. Xiao Ran should also have 30,000 men. If we fight force with force, we should not be at a disadvantage. However, we don't know if Xiao Ran and the others have started to attack. It would be great if we could rush out of the city before they do. They will wait until they take down Wu Lin's men before attacking us. However, I'm afraid that Xiao Ran has more than 30,000 men. Xiao Su sat down again. His fingers were clasped on the edge of the table. His thin lips were pursed. If he had not been careless, he would not have sent Wu Lin out so easily. Turin seemed to have thought of something. He could not help but take a step back. Could it be that the emperor has sent him reinforcements? Xiao Su sneered but did not speak. When the country was in danger, the ruler was still thinking of plotting against him. He really took him too seriously. After confirming his guess, Turin's expression was very ugly. Master, let's rush out. If we are trapped here, we will not be able to get out. Xiao Su's expression was cold. Send someone out to find out what's going on outside. Be careful not to be discovered. Turin immediately summoned Xiao Lai. After giving him some instructions, he dismissed him. Call all the generals in. I have something to announce. Order all the soldiers to quietly assemble and wait for my orders. Turin did not dare to delay, and immediately did as he was told. After passing down the orders, Turin returned and saw that his master's expression had become even more serious. He could not help but ask, Master, what are you thinking about? The emperor has already attacked me. Ian and General Jing will not be spared. I have written 2 letters. Immediately send the messenger eagle to them. Xiao Su pursed his lips. He put the 2 letters into an envelope and handed it over. He hoped that everything would be done in time. Ian, nothing must happen to you. Just as Xiao Su had expected, the Sichuan emperor had made arrangements for both sides. However, because of some unforeseen circumstances, the Sichuan emperor's plan for Chu Qingyan had been brought forward. Chapter 1446. In Chenzhou City, Chu Qingyan and Yun Feng sat opposite each other in the waiting room of the prefect of Chenzhou. There was another person sitting beside Yun Feng. He was wearing an official uniform. From the pattern on the uniform, one could tell that he had a powerful background. He had a fake smile on his face, but he did not hide the arrogance in his eyes. The first impression he gave was that he was not easy to get along with. Chu Qingyan had a faint smile on her face, but her eyes were as calm as water. Yun Feng awkwardly introduced the 2 of them. This is Li Hai, Lord Li from the capital. The previous army supervisor unfortunately passed away, so His Majesty sent Lord Li to assist. Lord Li, this is young General Chu that I mentioned to you. Thanks to young General Chu's help, our men were able to escape successfully, take back the city, and defeat the Lulan army. After Yun Feng finished his introduction, Li Hai immediately stood up with a friendly smile on his face. It turns out that this is the famous General Chu. You are really a young hero. Forgive me for not welcoming you from afar. If he really didn't go out to meet her, he wouldn't have stood up after Yun Feng finished speaking. Moreover, his words were too hypocritical. If she was a man, it would make sense. But for a woman like her, Li Hai's words were more like mocking her. But for some reason he restrained his dislike for her, and said such hypocritical words. You are too polite, Lord Li. Chu Qingyan nodded to him and then ignored him. She directly faced Yun Feng and said in a more polite tone than Li Hai, General Yin, what can I do for you? Yun Feng replied, I heard that young General Chu began to gather the army today. Are you ready to set off? Chu Qingyan remembered that she had asked someone to inform him last night. She didn't understand why he mentioned it again. But she noticed that he was uncomfortable. She had a good impression of him, so she smiled and replied, "Yes, it's almost time. I can't stay too long. And the current situation is under your control. There won't be any accidents, so I decided to leave tomorrow." Then she continued to say to Yunfeng before Li Hai could interrupt, "I have nothing to do here. I won't disturb General Yun and Lord Li from discussing military affairs." With that, Chu Qingyan stood up to leave. At this time, Li Hai seized the opportunity and said, "Young General Chu, don't worry. You have made such a great contribution. How can you just leave like this? In the past few days, 70 to 80% of the city has been restored. This is a joyous event. Why don't we let General Yun prepare a banquet to celebrate the victory? At the same time, we can send you off. What do you think, young General Chu?" She could feel Li Hai's dislike and even hostility towards her. Suddenly saying that he wanted to host a banquet to entertain her. She didn't believe that there wasn't something fishy going on. Chu Qingyan subconsciously wanted to refuse. Seeing the threat in Li Hai's eyes, Yunfeng frowned, but he still said before Chu Qingyan refused, "Don't be so polite, General Chu. The soldiers have worked so hard for so many days. It's time for them to relax. It won't affect the journey tomorrow." Chu Qingyan's gaze lingered on Li Hai's respectful and sincere face for a while, then turned to Yunfeng, who was rubbing his hands. A light flashed in her eyes and then disappeared. She cupped her hands with a smile. "Since the two of you are so kind, it would be impolite for me to refuse." After saying this, she didn't miss the success that flashed in Li Hai's eyes and Yunfeng's tightly clenched fists. After sending off Chu Qingyan, the fake smile on Li Hai's face disappeared. He glanced at Yunfeng and said in an aggressive tone, "There can't be a single mistake in tonight's plan. Otherwise, you'll be beheaded to see His Majesty." Yunfeng lowered his head and pursed his lips. "Yes." After walking out of the Fu, Hualing, who had been following his young princess, couldn't hold it in anymore. He said with a serious face, "Young princess, there must be a trap in this banquet. Why did you agree?" "It's because I know it's a trap, so I want to see what they want to do." Chu Qingyan lifted the creases on her sleeves and smiled. "Isn't there a saying? If I don't go to hell, who will?" Li Hai had silently appeared here, but she hadn't received any news. This meant that someone had deliberately hidden it from her, and then suggested a celebration banquet. It was to make sure she didn't have time to prepare. It was a pity that she was a person who liked to improvise. "Oh, young princess, does master know that you're so bold?" Every time the young princess revealed this kind of smile, it meant that she already had a plan. Hualing let out a sigh of relief and couldn't help but tease her. Chu Qingyan glanced at him when she heard this. "Is it because your skin is itching after leaving your master in Turin?" Hualing immediately raised his hands in surrender. Then he made a zipping motion at his mouth to show that he wouldn't speak anymore. She was amused by Hualing's actions, and the haze in her heart dissipated a lot. She waved her hand, and then led her people back to her headquarters. There would probably be a change tonight, so she had to go back early to make arrangements. After returning, she gathered all of her confidants and gave them a series of orders. Very soon, they split up and acted separately. When night fell, they silently sneaked back. "Is it all done?" Chu Qingyan looked at the young talents with a smile in her eyes. "It's all arranged." They were all in high spirits. Chu Qingyan nodded in satisfaction. "Good, then come with me to eat, drink, and play." She deliberately emphasized the last two words. "Understood." Everyone rubbed their palms together, and they all smiled slyly. Therefore, the group of people headed to the manor. The banquet was to be held in the prefectural manor's garden. It was said that the garden could hold at least a few hundred people, and there were many exotic flowers and plants planted there. It was a beautiful sight to behold. When Chu Qingyan heard about it, she scoffed coldly. "Another vermin." Because all the generals were invited, Chu Qingyan's Lai army received several jars of wine, and had them eat barbecued meat with Yin Feng's soldiers in the open space in the city. This arrangement seemed very reasonable and very considerate. But only insiders knew that this was just the liveliness before hell descended. As long as they turned the corner and walked a few steps, they would arrive at the manor. Chu Qingyan's group was walking casually when a soldier suddenly appeared at the intersection in front. Who are you? What do you want? Hualing blocked in front of her and stared at the soldier in front of him. That soldier immediately knelt down and presented a letter to Chu Qingyan. He said in a trembling voice, "This one is a subordinate of General Yun. Just now, the general told this one to wait here for General Chu and deliver this letter to you." Chu Qingyan found this person familiar. After thinking for a while, she remembered that this person was from Yunfeng and she had seen him before. But according to Jin Xian's investigation, tonight's matter was definitely related to Yunfeng. Why did he send a letter to her? A trap within a trap? Bring the letter over and let me see. Chapter 1447. Hualing and the others had the same thoughts as their little Wang Fei. Even though she had said it, he still checked the letter first. When he didn't find any hidden plots, he gave the letter to her. Chu Qingyan opened it and skimmed through it. There was a subtle smile on her face which made her subordinates itch. What did Yunfeng write in the letter? She gave the letter to the people around her to read, so that they wouldn't pester her and ask her questions. This Yunfeng isn't ungrateful. Hualing snorted softly after reading the letter. Jin Xian, Su Yi, and the others nodded. He was loyal and didn't betray his master. Chu Qingyan curled her lips and said to the soldier, "Go back and tell your general that I appreciate his kindness." The soldier didn't know what these people meant. He felt that they weren't targeting him like before, so he happily took the order and left. Even without his reminder, we can safely get through tonight. Hualing turned to look at the person next to him. Little Wang Fei, is this person a fence-sitter? Appeasing both sides and falling at any time? He shouldn't be. Thinking of his behavior in the hall today, Chu Qingyan smiled faintly. Maybe he was coerced. The imperial order cannot be disobeyed. Also, he took the risk to tell us Li Hai's plan. He wants us to not attend the banquet and leave immediately. Everyone nodded. Master was right. Let's go. We are late. If we delay any longer, they will send people to catch us. Chu Qingyan smiled. She didn't feel like she was going to a banquet at Hongmen. She called her companions as though she was really going to a celebration banquet. Hualing and Jin Xian exchanged a look. They shook their heads and smiled before following closely. By the time they were ushered into the beautiful garden, the people inside were already impatiently seated. Because Chu Qingyan had taken the ethereal, Hualing, and the others to visit her Lai army before moving to the Fu, they encountered Yunfeng's soldiers and were delayed for a while. So the official sitting next to Li Hai took the chance to have Chu Qingyan drink as punishment. The jug of wine was already in front of her, along with the exquisite wine cup. Chu Qingyan looked up and scanned the people present. Other than her own people, the people that Li Hai brought were all looking at her with unfriendly gazes and fake smiles. Yunfeng, on the other hand, had been looking at her in shock the moment she walked in. His gaze was very complicated, as if he was questioning why she was here. His gaze was fixed on the wine cup, and his lips were tightly pursed. She looked around in the blink of an eye, but she could clearly see the faces of these people. At this time, the waiter had already filled her cup with wine, not giving her the slightest chance to refuse. She smiled faintly, picked up the wine cup, and thoughtfully toasted the people present. This Chu didn't mean to be late, but this is the truth, so this Chu won't refuse. As punishment, this Chu will drink 3 cups to liven things up. With that, Chu Qingyan raised her head and drank the wine. Then she poured 2 more cups and drank the same thing. Because only men were attending this occasion, she also dressed as a man. Her appearance was handsome, her temperament was outstanding, and her behavior was natural and unrestrained. If the officials hadn't known in advance that she was Xiao Su's fiancée, they would have been unable to help but applaud her forthright behavior. When Li Hai saw her drink the wine he prepared, his eyes lit up. Then he said a few polite words to Chu Qingyan, and let everyone eat and drink to their heart's content. Come, let's give a toast to young General Chu as well. It is all thanks to her that we can sit here so peacefully. An official beside Li Hai raised his wine cup towards Chu Qingyan. Chu Qingyan replied politely as well. Once there was a first, there would be a second. Soon, people began to walk over. When the other party came to toast, Chu Qingyan understood clearly, but she didn't refuse them and drank with them. Under Chu Qingyan's instructions, her men also joined in the lively atmosphere. They all headed towards the officials on the field. She knew that her men were all experts at persuading people to drink, and they would definitely be able to get these people drunk. Toasts were exchanged, and the dancers danced in the center. The entire banquet gradually reached its climax. The people that came to Chu Qingyan's place to toast were all stopped by Su Yi and the others. Chu Qingyan held the wine cup as she leaned against the back of the chair. Her eyes looked through the cup at the people around her, cold and playful. There was a faint smile at the corner of her mouth. Those singers and dancers that didn't know what was going on couldn't help but look at her. The young master was like jade, incomparably handsome. In this group of men he was especially bright and clear, making people's hearts beat faster. Ling couldn't help shaking his head on the side. Us brothers are all handsome men, but next to little Princess Fei, we are like weeds. Sui smiled as he teased. If you also enjoy this treatment, you can tell Master. Maybe she will reward you with some beauties later. Ling imagined the scene of being surrounded by those women, and couldn't help but jerk his lips. The scene was too beautiful and he didn't dare to look. While Feng Wuya was fooling around, Li Hai's side was already anticipating what would happen later. Amidst the laughter, his gaze became even more disdainful. According to the plan, Chu Qingyan and the others should be drunk to the point of delirium, and wouldn't notice the change in his expression. However, when Chu Qingyan raised her head, she met his gaze. Officially, you seem to have a problem with this Chu. Her voice was neither loud nor soft, but it penetrated the entire banquet. Those dancers had long been paying attention to her every move. Now that they stopped, the music stopped abruptly. Everyone's attention was drawn to the two of them. It was the first time that Li Hai had been exposed so straightforwardly. The smile on Li Hai's face disappeared, but his many years of experience in officialdom made him calm down quickly. He smiled and said, "Young General Chu, are you drunk and talking nonsense? In any case, this person would be at the mercy of others later. It was better to endure for a while." Chu Qingyan took advantage of the alcohol to say with hazy eyes, "But this Chu clearly saw officially looking at this Chu with disdain just now. This Chu didn't see wrong." It was said that drunken people spoke the truth. Everyone looked at Li Hai with inquisitive gazes. How could Li Hai endure these perverted gazes? Calculating that it was about time for the poison to take effect, Li Hai didn't want to pretend anymore. He stood up and looked at Chu Qingyan with a cold smile. "That's right. You're a traitor. How can you bear the burden of this celebration banquet? Aren't you thinking too highly of yourself?" The fox's tail finally couldn't be hidden anymore, and was about to show itself. Chu Qingyan's lips hooked in an evil smile. "I didn't expect this Chu to work so hard for the people and drive away the enemy. In the end, I'll be called a traitor. With this, how can the heroes of the world dare to work for the imperial court in the future, and work for the good of the people?" When these words fell, Li Hai's expression turned ugly. But when he saw Chu Qingyan's drunken state, his expression turned smug. "Chu Qingyan, do you think that your glib tongue can help you get away? Stop dreaming. You and your traitors won't be able to walk out of here tonight." He picked up the wine cup and poured the wine in it. Through the wine he smiled slyly. "This wine was specially prepared for you." Chapter 1448. Of course there was something wrong with the wine, but how could Chu Qingyan not know? However, Chu Qingyan pretended to be in disbelief. She widened her eyes and raised a finger to point at him. "Officially, I have no grievances with you. Why would you frame me like this?" Seeing Chu Qingyan's deflated expression, Li Hai was in a good mood and laughed out loud. Then he stopped laughing and said gloatingly, "Chu Qingyan, the King of England has rebelled, and is opposing the imperial court. Sooner or later he will be arrested by His Majesty. As his fiancé, you raised an army without the imperial court's permission. This crime is enough for you to be beheaded several times. This official indeed has no grievances with you, but you should never have offended the people above you. Doesn't officially know what it means to obey authority? If the country hadn't encountered such a disaster, do you think I would appear here? Also, officially is speaking in such a dignified manner. Isn't it to hide the fact that the people above want to get rid of you after you've outlived your usefulness? Chu Qingyan held the wine cup and swayed from side to side. It was as if she dared to question him like this because she was drunk. Chu Qingyan's bombardment of questions made Li Hai's expression turn ugly. However, when he saw that she and the people she brought were all drunk and limp in their chairs, his expression turned better. Chu Qingyan, you're about to die and you're still talking nonsense. Chu Qingyan didn't seem to hear his words. Instead, she supported her chin with one hand and calmly continued. Officially, if possible, can you ask His Majesty for me? Since he wants people to protect the country and the people for him, but he can't tolerate meritorious officials gaining a foothold in the country, then what will happen to the people who are loyal to the country and love the country? Killing people after using them. Isn't this the magnanimity of a wise ruler? If this is the case, who would dare to build a career in the future? Who would dare to do their best for the people? These words were an allusion to what Li Hai was doing at this moment. The chaos in Lulan had just been quelled when Sichuan Emperor wanted to exterminate them. Not only were there people brought by Li Hai, there were also many singers and dancers invited by the people. The reason why she dragged Li Hai to say these words was not on a whim, but because she wanted to use these people to spread the word and destroy the image that Sichuan Emperor had painstakingly built. She defeated Lulan's army and took back the city. However, the people still saw that the imperial court wanted to kill her. Once the seed of doubt was planted, it would sprout and erupt one day, and she believed that the day of eruption was not far away. Only then did Li Hai notice that there were other people in the garden besides the soldiers. He was furious. He didn't expect Chu Qingyan to be able to talk so eloquently under such circumstances. She made him speechless. However, these words must not be spread out. The people in this world were most afraid of the pen of a scholar, the sword of a warrior, and the mouth of the common people. Although the common people didn't have much status, there were many of them. Once word of mouth spread, even spittle could drown people, let alone an emperor who cared so much about the voice of the common people. Thus Li Hai immediately ordered Yunfeng, hurry up and arrest these people. If they go out and spread nonsense, we'll all have to bear the consequences. As the commander here, how could Yunfeng do anything to his own people? At this moment, Chu Qingyan lazily interjected. Officially, are you angry from embarrassment? Li Hai didn't care about maintaining his composure. He angrily pointed at Chu Qingyan and said, don't be so smug. Tonight, I'll let you walk in and leave lying down. From the looks of it, Lord Li seems determined to win. Chu Qingyan laughed softly. Stop talking nonsense. This official will let you. Before Li Hai could finish his words, he was stunned. Yunfeng saw that he looked like he had seen a ghost and couldn't help but look at Chu Qingyan. He saw that the person who was leaning against the chair as if she had no bones slowly sat up. The drunken haze in her eyes disappeared, and she was sober. There was a mocking smile at the corner of her mouth, and there was no sign of being drugged. Yunfeng was also shocked, let alone Li Hai. What do you want me to do? What I hate the most are people who stop talking halfway and leave people hanging. Chu Qingyan said with a smile. Then her expression changed and became as stern as a knife. Capture these ungrateful people who are trying to play the blame game. What's going on? Weren't you poisoned? Wait, Chu Qingyan, you actually dared to murder an official of the imperial court. Guards, arrest them for this official. Li Hai pointed at her with a trembling finger, and his voice was trembling with anger. Chu Qingyan chuckled. There is always a higher mountain. When it comes to scheming, you are not this Chu's match. So officially, do you think you can still move? Li Hai finally realized that he had no strength in his body and collapsed in his seat. The officials who came with him were also poisoned. He stared at her in horror. What did you do to us? We are just giving you a taste of your own medicine. So officially, if you walk in the dark too much, you will meet ghosts. Chu Qingyan said with a hidden meaning in her words. Li Hai couldn't help but think of all the things he had done for His Majesty all these years, and his heart turned cold. Impossible, we clearly saw you drink the wine, and we also took the antidote. How could it be that we were poisoned? One of the officials cried out in shock. Chu Qingyan was too lazy to explain to them, and ethereal, who had been an invisible person, stood in the light at this time to explain his little princess consort's confusion. He had a warm smile on his face, but the words he said were shocking. This one has already cured the poison in the wine, and at the same time, added another drug. Originally, you would only feel weak after drinking it, but you took the antidote before, and it is counteracting with this drug. So, it is possible that you won't be able to move for 3 days and 3 nights. Powerful, and the others looked at Ethereal in disbelief, as well as the gorgeous woman beside him, looking like the situation was hopeless. A few white shadows appeared out of nowhere and pounced on those people. Those people were basically civil officials, and had never seen such ferocious animals before, so they all fainted at once. The people that Li Hai brought were all subdued by Chu Qingyan, and Yin Feng's people were all gathered in the center of the field. He didn't order people to attack, and Chu Qingyan also didn't order people to attack them. At this time, she was gently stroking the glutinous rice ball that was rubbing against her hand, as if she only had eyes for her pet, and Yin Feng and the others were left in the same place. Young General Chu, how do you want to deal with this one? Yin Feng knew that she was waiting for him to make a statement, or she wouldn't let them stay, so he could only brace himself and ask. Hearing this, Chu Qingyan moved her hand away from the glutinous rice ball's head, and looked at him with a smile. I want 3 cities under your command. This wasn't a question, but a final decision. Chapter 1449. As soon as these words came out, all the people present were shocked. Of course, Chu Qingyan's own people were not included. General Chu, do you know what you are doing? After being shocked, Yin Feng looked at her unbelievably as if he had just heard an illusion. The glutinous rice ball rubbed her hand again and licked her fingers, attracting her attention. She lowered her head and stroked its head again. She said casually, General Yin, I thought you had seen the situation clearly, but for the sake of your reminder, I can tell you. In her unhurried voice, Yin Feng had slowly found his reason, but his expression was still shocked. Maybe it was hard to imagine that a woman would have such a bold idea. His Highness didn't care about the past and promised the imperial court to resist the enemy with you. But what did you do? Burn the bridge after crossing the river? Kill the donkey after it has outlived its usefulness? Chu Qingyan's voice slowly condensed at this time, with a trace of coldness. Do you think His Highness is still the stupid person who only did things for the people, and was fooled by the Emperor in the end? Now, I can tell you that even if His Highness can tolerate this, I can't. Surrender or die. This is the choice I'm giving you. When she said this, Yin Feng found that her eyes were not on him, but on the civil officials who woke up faintly through him. But their mouths were gagged so they could only whimper at this time. Chu Qingyan didn't intend to let them speak. She took back her eyes from them and smiled coldly. Yin Feng suddenly found that even though he had lived for most of his life, he couldn't see through the girl in front of him. She was about the same age as his daughter, but he always felt that he had nowhere to hide in front of her. Since I can protect all of you, I can also destroy all of you. If all of you had not played this trick before I left, I would not have hurt any of you. Now, haha, I Chu Qingyan will be taking these 3 cities. This is not a discussion. I'm just informing you. Chu Qingyan looked at Yin Feng with a gentle smile, waiting for him to express his attitude calmly, as if the threatening words just now were not from her mouth. Until today, Yin Feng realized what it meant to be powerful without being angry, and that you were willing to surrender. After he recovered from his daze, he ignored the moaning of the ministers behind him and quickly took out 3 tokens from his sleeve, respectfully presenting them with both hands. These tokens are what young General Chu deserves. This Yin is willing to advance and retreat together with your Highness Prince Ing. Yin Feng would hand over the tokens sooner or later, but Chu Qingyan didn't expect that he would be so straightforward. What he said, which surprised the people present. If she was not mistaken, this person was surrendering to her. To be more precise, he wanted to join the Ice Cube's camp. Chu Qingyan waved her hand, and someone took the tokens. However, she didn't let him stand up immediately. Instead, she squinted at him. However, Yin Feng was like a stone, letting her look at him. Finally, Chu Qingyan said slowly, General Yin, As for the last sentence you just said, I'm stupid. I don't know what you want to express. Hearing this, Yunfeng put his hands on the ground and kowtowed with his head, saying word by word. Li Hai's action this time was to follow His Majesty's order. However, he killed a loyal general in such a way, which really makes me disappointed. I don't know when I will be treated like this. I feel that His Royal Highness is benevolent and magnanimous, serving the country and the people. He has always been the object of my admiration. Now that I have this opportunity, I'm willing to follow His Royal Highness. No matter what the future is, I'm willing to follow His Royal Highness and fulfill my ambition. These words were not impassioned. They only expressed his disappointment in the current emperor, his admiration for Xiao Su, and his firm desire to follow His Majesty. Chu Qingyan originally planned to arrange a proper place for Yunfeng after he handed over the tokens. Although he couldn't take charge of the military power, he could be worry-free. After all, this old general was honest and magnanimous. He didn't have the intention to harm her. He even tipped her off and arranged a way for her to escape. He was a precious good man. However, she didn't expect that he would want to join Big Ice Cube. This was an unexpected surprise. She was worried that no one could help her take care of military affairs. Chu Qingyan stood up and walked quickly to him. She helped him up with both hands and showed a sincere smile on her face. I'm very surprised and touched by General Yun's words. If His Majesty knows, he will be very happy. We lack people like you. Please give me more advice in the future. Yunfeng immediately took a step back and bowed again. He said respectfully and emotionally, "Thank you for your kindness, General Chu. I will live up to your expectations." Chu Qingyan smiled and waved her hand. Those eyesores were taken away. The whole garden was cleaned up. The wine was served again. The banquet really began at this time. Chu Qingyan poured wine for Yunfeng in person. Yunfeng was so excited that he picked up the wine and toasted. "Thank you, General Chu, for your willingness to let these soldiers go and let people treat their wounds." In the fight with Lulan, his people suffered heavy losses. Almost all of them were injured. Although they also had military doctors, they were not as skilled as those brought by Chu Qingyan. "General Yin, you don't have to be so polite. They are loyal to you and have joined our army now. They are family and should help each other." Chu Qingyan waved her hand indifferently. The two chatted for a while. Without the solemn atmosphere of leading an army, Yunfeng found that this young girl in front of him was very talkative. No matter if it was the mountains and rivers, or the art of war, she could talk to him about it. They instantly became much closer. Yunfeng drank a lot of wine and also relaxed. "General Chu, if I don't hand over the token, how do you plan to deal with us?" Before Chu Qingyan could speak, Hualing on the side spoke first. Hualing said with a cunning expression, "General Yun, even without your token, the 3 cities are already in our hands. After my family's little princess found out the purpose of your banquet, we changed the city guards of the 3 cities. To us, the token is actually dispensable." Yunfeng was stunned. He turned to look at the person who was as beautiful as a peach blossom, and there was fear in his heart. Could it be that General Chu was already prepared? Chu Qingyan shook her head. "No, I was already prepared to leave this place, but something was wrong with your side that caught my attention. Then I kept an eye on it. If you wanted to harm us, we would replace you. I just didn't expect that the people I just arranged would be useful so quickly." Yunfeng shook his head and laughed. He didn't know if he should say that Li Hai and the others were too stupid, or that the person in front of him was too smart. He was alert at the slightest movement. He smiled brightly. "General Chu, you really are too smart. This general admits defeat." Chu Qingyan smiled and cupped her hands in return. "General Yin is too serious. Come, I'll call a few people who know how to drink with you." After the laughter faded into the background, Chu Qingyan leaned against a pear tree and looked to the north. How was the big ice cube doing? Chapter 1450. After the banquet, Chu Qingyan gave him the 3 talismans again, and told him to guard these cities well. When he was confused and excited, she chuckled and said, "Don't use people you don't trust, and don't doubt people you use. I believe in my own vision, and I also believe in the general's character and strength." The night was melting. After watching a group of people leave the city, Yunfeng felt that the talismans were hot in his hand. It felt good to be trusted. Lu Jun, we met a talent scout that we can trust. Yunfeng's eyes were slightly wet, and he sighed with emotion to the military counselor beside him. Lu Jun nodded heavily. Few people knew that they had been suppressed by the emperor. If it were not for the fact that they really couldn't spare manpower for this war, the emperor would not send them because they had been promoted by the Luo family. They thought that they could only be hidden by the emperor for the rest of their lives, and then they would be depressed and die of old age. However, they didn't expect that the alliance of the three countries would attack. They were sent here, but they suffered heavy losses and were almost wiped out. The letter of reinforcement was sent out. They faintly guessed that they had been abandoned by the emperor, or the emperor took the opportunity to eradicate them. From a young age, they had been taught to be loyal to their king and to love their country. However, they did not expect that the king they were loyal to would want them dead. Just as they were about to die, Chu Qingyan saved them and treated them courteously. She gave them authority and did not suspect them at all. She did not even try to steal their credit. This made Yunfeng feel extremely flattered. Now, when Li Hai was ordered to come to eliminate Chu Qingyan, Yunfeng took his soldiers to make a choice with a clear conscience. They were an army that existed for the country and the people. As long as it was for the good of the country and the people, it didn't matter whether they were loyal to the emperor or not. Moreover, as generals, they didn't have so many twists and turns, moral and legal constraints like the civil officials. In their view, the position of the emperor should be occupied by the capable. And Xiao Su was so excellent in all aspects that people looked up to him. He couldn't be more suitable. Yes, General, we finally have the chance to see the moon. Lu Jun's tone was also excited. Since ancient times, there were many excellent horses, but talent scouts were rare. Finally, when half of their bodies were buried in the ground, they finally met one. The two of them stood at the top of the city gate tower. After the group of people disappeared into the horizon, they slowly walked down the stairs. Military advisor, let's let the injured soldiers rest and recuperate first. Then we'll mobilize the citizens to participate in the reconstruction of the city. The Princess Consort has entrusted the city to you and me. We can't let it continue to deteriorate. You're right, General. However, there's something we need to prepare in advance. I know. We need to preserve our strength. Who knows when His Highness will officially start a war with the Imperial Court? At that time, we can also lend a hand. The conversation gradually faded away. The Lulan army had already become a thing of the past. A new chapter was about to begin here. Chu Qingyan naturally did not know about the conversation that night. At this moment, she was galloping towards the north. Right after the banquet ended, she received a letter. The contents of the letter made her tremble with anger and panic at the same time. It said that not long after the Southern Blue Army was defeated, Xiao Ran made a move on her family's big ice cube. Now the two sides were like fire and water. The letter only mentioned this. She did not know what happened after that. Because of this, she could not sit still. Overnight, she led the troops to leave Raozhou and went straight to the north. Yunfeng only had 30,000 troops under his command. It was just enough to protect the three cities. Moreover, she did not plan to take away his people, although he had already expressed this intention. Now she was leading her 2,000 fierce soldiers, howling cavalry and beasts. Day and night they did not stop. There were not many people and horses, so it was more convenient to hurry. Moreover, with the presence of the beasts, the demons and monsters had all retreated. However, no matter how fast they were, the two of them were at the front and back of the Sichuan. They would not be able to catch up in a short time. Little princess, you should rest for a while. Otherwise, your body will collapse. Ethereal could not bear to see her working so hard. She could not help but advise during a break. Jean Xian Su Yi and the others naturally followed her orders. In their eyes, their master was always right, and they would not have any objections. Therefore, they could only let him and Huoling advise her. Otherwise, when their master saw little princess like this, they might be thrown into the Fuli mountain range to mine. Chu Qingyan had not closed her eyes for 2 days and 2 nights, but her heart was worried. At this time, It was like a taut string, not daring to relax for even a moment. Hearing Ethereal's words, she wanted to say that she was fine. However, she saw the exhaustion on the soldiers' faces from the corner of her eyes. She suddenly realized that she had been rushing too much. She raised a hand to rub her forehead. Pass down the order. Rest here tonight. Ethereal immediately nodded and then said in concern, Little princess, you have not eaten much in the past 2 days. It seems that your appetite is not good. Why don't this subordinate take your pulse and see if you are sick? Chu Qingyan frowned slightly upon hearing this. She had not eaten much in the past 2 days, but it was not that her appetite was not good. She always felt hungry, but when the food reached her mouth, she felt nauseous and wanted to vomit. She felt that it was because she was tired, so she waved her hand and said, It's fine. I think I'll be fine after a good night's rest. Ethereal thought it was true. Not having enough rest would affect one's appetite. He said with a smile, Just now, I seem to have seen Jean Xian pick a lot of fruit. The juice is sweet. It will probably be sent over later. Little princess can eat first to fill your stomach. When the meal is ready, I'll have someone bring it over. Chu Qingyan nodded with a smile. Big Ice Cube was not here. His fierce riders were almost like old nannies by her side, nagging her to eat, drink, and sleep every day. It was both funny and touching. Yet when Ethereal, Hualing, and the others came to discuss the next plan, they saw their little princess happily eating the unripe fruit. They couldn't help but look at Jean Xian at the side. The latter shrugged. Master feels that the ripe ones are not good. He prefers the unripe ones. What are you standing there for? Come and eat the fruit. It's sour and astringent, but it's good to eat. Looking at the person waving at them, Ethereal and the others inexplicably felt their teeth ache. The moonlight melted. The end of summer had passed. The autumn wind rustled and blew the leaves to the ground. That fallen leaf was caught by a beautiful hand. 2 fingers pinched the leaf. Xian Mo's eyes looked silently as though he was studying something strange. He stood there for a long time without moving. A falling leaf could tell the fall of autumn. His gaze was tinged with faint worry. If they couldn't end the battle quickly, they would have to drag it on until winter. Master, we have already found General Wu's current position. However, they are surrounded and cannot break out of the encirclement for the time being. Behind us is Xiao Ran's army and his reinforcements. They won't let us go. I'm afraid we won't be able to send reinforcements to General Wu. Turin's voice was tense. His expression was grave. Summon everyone into the tent. This prince wants to redeploy. Xiao Su released his fingers. That leaf slowly fell to the ground. It was time for a change. Chapter 1451. The generals had all gathered in the tent, but they were unable to fill the small main tent. This was because some of them had followed Wu Lin to capture the so-called remnants of the enemy, and were now trapped, while the others had been killed in the breakout of Haiyu City 2 days ago. The atmosphere in the tent was very gloomy after losing brothers who had fought side by side with them. The number of generals present could be counted on one hand. Is everyone here? Xiao Su lifted his battle robe and sat down on the main seat. He glanced at his subordinates and paused at the empty seats. A trace of pain flashed through his eyes. Turin stepped forward and replied, Everyone is here. Xiao Su closed his eyes. When he opened them again, he had regained his clarity. He said calmly, Tell me about the current situation. Turin nodded. We have 20,000 men on hand. We don't know how General Wu's men are doing. Right now, we are about 100 li away from General Wu. If we ride at full speed, we can reach him in a day. However, Xiao Ran's men are only 10 li away from us. He has 30,000 men and 200 million reinforcements. His numbers far exceed ours. Furthermore, there are still 30,000 men that Xiao Ran sent to besiege General Wu between us and General Wu. If they rushed to reinforce Wu Lin now, Xiao Ran's men would follow closely behind. The people besieging Wu Lin would also pounce on them. At that time, they would be attacked from both sides. With their current 20,000 men, their chances of victory were almost zero. How is General Lu's situation? Xiao Su rubbed his left thumb and index finger. His expression was calm. No one could tell what he was feeling at this moment. Our provisions, Turin lowered his head and took a deep breath before saying, have been destroyed. Even though everyone present had mentally prepared themselves, they were still shocked by this news. The bad news came one after another. Every one of them was a fatal blow. Xiao leaned back in his chair and raised his hand to rub his aching forehead. The emperor had already started planning. He understood his personality and knew that after defeating the Southern Blue Army, he would not stay for long and would continue to head to the front lines. Therefore, when his provisions were in advance, the emperor had sent people to keep an eye on him. When Xiao made a move against him, the emperor had immediately burned his provisions. Because he had already prepared sufficient provisions, the emperor could not take them away. He was also afraid that Xiao would snatch them back, so he had people destroy them. In these years, the Sichuan's costs had decreased. He did not expect the emperor to be so ruthless to burn so much of his provisions. It was clear how much he hated Xiao and wanted him to immediately disappear from this world. Although the current situation was very unfavorable to them, and could be said to be roasted on a fire, the generals present did not panic because of this. This was because it was not their first time experiencing such a hopeless situation. The person who pulled them out of the quagmire was right in front of them. Therefore, as long as they followed the Lord, they would have a chance to survive. They had always believed so. At this time, Xiao was silent, as if he was deep in thought. Everyone was careful not to make any noise to disturb him. After a while, the person who was as still as a statue moved. His eyes flashed and revealed his sharpness. He stood up and stared coldly at the map. Everyone followed his movements and gathered around him. Xiao pointed at Xiao Ran's current position and said, they're not making a move right now. It seems like they're waiting for our next step, but we can't guarantee when they'll make a move, so we can't stay here for too long. He pointed at Wu Lin's position. Wu Lin has 30,000 people. If they want to eat them, it will not be that easy. Therefore, send a message to him first. Let him hold on for a few more days and delay the 30,000 soldiers. Someone nodded. What was left was 20,000 against 50,000. Xiao licked his slightly molted lips, a bloodthirsty glint in his eyes. Actually, we should not only have 20,000 men. Have someone spread the news in the Wind-Rising Army that the emperor wants to get rid of me before the country's crisis is resolved because of this prince's achievements. I believe it will be very difficult for them to submit to the imperial court. Everyone's eyes lit up. One of them said, is the Lord planning to pull the Wind-Rising Army back? The Wind-Rising Army was the army that Xiao had gathered in his name. Not long ago, Xiao Ran had taken away their military seal. They are from the common people. Back then, they were gathered in the name of the Lord. When they hear about this, they will definitely not be able to accept it. If they all come to support us, our manpower will immediately be equal to Xiao Ran's. Someone continued. Xiao said indifferently, do not incite them. Just ask if they are willing to follow this prince. Everything is voluntary. He did not want these people to turn around and blame him when the time came. Master, leave this matter to this subordinate. Lu Guang and several fierce cavalry stepped forward to ask for orders. This recruitment and training had all been done by them. There was probably no one more suitable than them. Xiao nodded in agreement. But we cannot place all our hopes on the Wind-Rising Army. We need to prepare for both sides. Xiao paused and pointed at a place on the map. The mountains here are steep and there are not many trees. It can be said that one person can hold back 10,000 men. When night falls, we will take the mountain path and reach this place. At the very least, we can delay the army behind us and not fight them head-on. Then we can use the terrain to fight local battles, just like the Battle of Huling Pass. The Battle of Huling Pass? That was the battle that had made the Lord famous in the past. He had won despite being outnumbered. It was also a situation where there was a great disparity in strength between the enemy and himself. No wonder they felt that the Lord's words sounded familiar. It turned out that they had heard of it before. The morale was immediately raised. The previous dejection was swept away. Everyone was in high spirits as they waited for orders. Xiao looked at the people present with satisfaction. These were all old generals that had followed him for many years. They were all very capable. He gave orders one by one. Very quickly, everyone received their own orders. But this operation will definitely attract the attention of Xiao Ran and the others. Someone must lead the troops to divert their attention and allow the main force to move smoothly. Xiao Su's gaze fell on the people present. Everyone was shouldering a heavy responsibility. There was no one left to take charge of this matter. Master, let this subordinate do this. Turin stood up and volunteered. Xiao Su shook his head without hesitation. No, you are not familiar with this place. This trip will not bode well for you. I'm afraid you will not be able to return. Stopping Turin from speaking again, Xiao Su was thinking of a suitable candidate. This was a risky move. If one didn't know the terrain well, know how to use troops, have a strong ability to adapt, and have a strong psychological quality, it would be impossible to complete the task. Failure of the task was one thing. In the end, it was possible that the whole army would be wiped out and drag the main force down. However, there was no one in the tent who was qualified. Xiao Su thought for a moment, and decided to do it himself. However, at this time, a strange yet familiar voice came from outside the tent. Let me go. No one knew who it was outside. Everyone was surprised. On the main seat, Xiao Su's heart tightened. He looked at the curtain that was about to be lifted. Chapter 1452. That voice penetrated the curtain and made Xiao Su forget what he was doing for a moment. He just looked straight in that direction, a little surprised and a little expectant. Could that person be him? Turin stood next to the main seat and keenly felt the change in his master's mood. He looked at the curtain with confusion. Soon his eyes lit up. Could it be? The curtain was lifted by a pair of strong hands. From bottom to top, there was a pair of ordinary military boots, ordinary soldier uniform, and ordinary helmet. However, that face was not ordinary at all. My God, old Master Chu. However, what the hell was that resolute, serious, and calm look on his face? Few people present knew old Master Chu, except for Xiao Su and the others. As soon as he saw him, he didn't care that his appearance was against the rules. He turned to the person on the main seat and said, Lord, this is the person I mentioned to you before. Huh? Where's Lord? Why did he disappear in the blink of an eye? Before Lu Weiyan could react, he heard a familiar voice. Old Master Chu, why are you here? Turin, call the military doctor to take a look at old Master Chu's injury. Lu Weiyan turned his head and opened his eyes wide. Was this gentle and kind lord really the lord he had seen before? Wait, did he open the door in the wrong way? At this time, Tu Ling and the others had already happily welcomed Chu Li's father in, and then arranged a seat for him. Then they pulled out a bag of candies from nowhere and stuffed it into Chu Li's father's hands. They coaxed him. We have limited resources, so you can eat this first to satisfy your craving. As soon as he finished speaking, the military doctor arrived and quickly helped Chu Machen's father examine his injured arm. This change seemed to be natural in front of Lord, but the generals present were stunned and couldn't come back to their senses for a long time. At this time, a general who was close to Turin asked in a low voice, Who is this person? How can he be treated so well by Lord? Turin turned his eyes to the person who cooperated with the military doctor and chuckled. This is Master's father-in-law, the little princess's biological father. This news exploded in the small tent. The man who made Lord lose 30% of his fierceness and 70% of his coldness was his father-in-law? Heavens, didn't they say that this old man was as innocent as a child? How could he be so awe-inspiring? Moreover, he was incomparably handsome, like a god. The military doctor stood up and bowed to Xiao Su. It's just a minor injury. It's not a big deal. It'll heal in 2 days. Xiao Su nodded and told him to leave after applying the medicine. Then he looked around. Those generals were also very perceptive. They all left to do their own things. But before they left, they couldn't help but curiously look at this lord's father-in-law who suddenly appeared. The main thing was that he was completely opposite to the rumors. And the one who was more shocked was Lu Weiyan. He actually let the old man be a soldier under him. Would he be beaten to death by Lord? At this time, Xiao Su and Chu Yunxing's father officially met. Old Master, you should rest well in the military camp for the next 2 days. Once you've recovered, I'll have someone send you back. Xiao Su sat down beside him. He didn't mention a word of what Chu Yunxing's father had said when he appeared. Chu Yunxing's father shifted his gaze from the sugar packet in his hand to the peerless son-in-law in front of him. He said word by word, "I'm not going back. I've remembered everything in the past. I can help you." As he spoke, he briefly recounted what had happened recently and the process of his recovery. He spoke clearly and normally. Clang! Turin's tea spilled all over the floor. He stared at Chu Yunxing in disbelief. "You've recovered your memory?" Yen Luo and Ethereal had tried their best to prevent him from remembering the past. Everyone thought that the road ahead would be long and arduous. Unexpectedly, he remembered everything as soon as he turned around. Moreover, it seemed that he had recovered from his illness. If he hadn't confirmed his identity, he would have thought that someone was impersonating him. After receiving confirmation from Chu Yunxing's father, Turin was wild with joy. Xiao Su met Chu Yunxing's eyes. They were no longer confused and innocent, only clear and far-sighted. In fact, he had already noticed the change in Chu Yunxing's aura when he came in just now. He had a vague suspicion in his heart. Now that he had confirmed it, he was overjoyed. He finally got rid of one of his worries. If the little fellow knew about it, she would be overjoyed. However, he wouldn't agree with Chu Yunxing's suggestion. "You've just come back and you've just recovered from a serious illness. You should rest well. As for the battle, I'll consider other suitable candidates. You don't have to worry," Xiao Su said gently. He also summoned a soldier to take him away to freshen up. However, Chu Yunxing's father spoke in an extremely calm voice. "No one is more familiar with this place than me. I believe I'm the most suitable candidate." Xiao Su's expression didn't change. He still looked calm and indifferent. "Even so, I won't let you take this risk." His voice was gentle, but there was no room for negotiation. However, what kind of person was Chu Yunxing's father? In the past, when he was naive, he would pester his son-in-law to follow his wishes. Now that he had recovered his memory, he was no longer as shameless as before. However, he was still shrewd. Who didn't know how to persuade his son-in-law with reason? "In the past, I was framed here and lost 100,000 brothers. Son-in-law, this is where I fell. Now I want to stand up again. Otherwise, I'll never be able to get over this hurdle. I hope you can understand. You don't want me to live with regret for the rest of my life, right?" With this last sentence, Xiao Su seemed to see the past in Chu Yunxing's eyes. Every time something happened, Chu Yunxing would look at him with starry eyes. He couldn't refuse him, and he couldn't keep a straight face. But this time, it's really dangerous. Not only do we have to divert the enemy's attention, but we also have to find a way to contact Wulin. If we're not careful, we'll be wiped out. "Father, this isn't child's play." Xiao Su tried to persuade him. However, Chu Yunxing's father was determined. He narrowed his eyes and looked at him. "There's no such thing as father and son on the battlefield. As a general, what you should do is to know people well and not be tied down by emotions. My experience on the battlefield is no less than that of your subordinates. This time, the terrain is special. You know that no one is more suitable than me. Give the order, son-in-law." "This isn't." Before Xiao Su could finish his words, he was interrupted. "Son-in-law, if you don't agree, I won't let Kai marry you." Xiao Su was speechless. Chu Yunxing's father had become a steady person after not seeing him for a while. Turin was happy, but he also felt a little lost. Would no one call him Black Impermanence in the future? Although he used to reject this strange title, he felt a little lost now. In the future, he was afraid that there would no longer be such a person who would secretly follow him around just to give him a chicken drumstick as a midnight snack. There would no longer be such a person who would innocently and cutely ask him for candy buns or talk endlessly into his ear. There would no longer be such a person who would run over to him with chicken feathers on his head to complain that Little White, Little Yellow, or Little White had bullied him again and wanted him to take revenge for him. Black Impermanence. Chapter 1453. Turin thought that he was hallucinating when he heard the voice that was arguing with his master a moment ago. He continued to walk forward. "Black Impermanence, you heartless bastard. You didn't even answer when I called you. It's so annoying. As soon as the voice fell, Turin thought that he was hallucinating, but he felt that his head was slapped hard by someone. Of course, the force was not strong, but the person's face was fierce and he looked a little aggrieved. Old master? Turin rubbed his eyes. When he saw who it was, he still looked like he had seen a ghost. The person in front of him had clear eyes like a stream. His cheeks were puffed up, and his hands were clenched into fists and stamped his feet. The words, "I'm not happy," were almost written on his face. Wasn't he serious in the camp just now? Why did he suddenly change into his old appearance? Turin thought that he must be so tired that even his eyes were hallucinating. A quarter of an hour later, two figures sat on the trunk of a tree. Black impermanence, why does the candy taste like this? I like crispy ones. This one is so hard. Chu Yinxing took a bite and felt that his teeth hurt. He couldn't help but complain, but he still took another bite. Since he left, he hadn't eaten candy anymore. Turin couldn't tell him that this candy was prepared for him to eat on the way back when they parted. However, he suddenly had something to do that day and didn't have time to give it to him. So he kept this candy with him. Now it was just the right time to give it to him. Old master, why are you? Turin didn't know how to describe the old man who changed in a few minutes. Chu Yunqing's father seemed to know what he wanted to say. He chewed the candy loudly and replied with a lisp. Only in this way can my son-in-law rest assured and let me lead the army to war. Are you stupid? He added with a roll of his eyes. These words shocked Turin even more than when he saw Chu Yunqing's father just now. He was a person who could distinguish between public and private affairs. He immediately put on a straight face. Old master, this is not a game. I'm going to tell Lord that you haven't recovered your memory. Just as Turin was about to move, Chu Machen's father grabbed him and brought him to the ground. Chu Machen let go of his hand and put his hands behind his back, provoking him. Want to fight? Turin did not understand why the old man had changed his style. However, he did not have time to think about it because the fist was already in front of him. He immediately raised his hand to block it. In the main tent, Xiao frowned as he pondered. His mind was filled with the conversation he had just had with the old man. He began to recall the old man's deeds before his accident. Chu Huayuan had already made a name for himself in the capital when he was a little over 10 years old. He had defeated the martial arts champion of that year. If it weren't for the fact that he was too young to participate in the champion competition, he would have already become an official in the imperial court. However, he had become famous at a young age, and his name had already spread to the palace. The upper echelons had some thoughts about him and planned to train him well. Perhaps he could become a pillar of the country in the future. However, what really made him known to the imperial court was that the Emperor Emeritus was attacked during his private visit to the people. Chu Huayuan, who was chasing a small thief, saved him. The Emperor Emeritus felt that he was very likable, so he sent him to the military camp to gain experience. Soon, Chu Huayuan rose to the position of a general because of his excellent performance. If it weren't for the complete defeat of the army 15 years ago, when he was sent back, he would have become even more famous. He originally thought that a bright pearl would be covered in dust. However, the affairs of the world were unpredictable. No one would have thought that Chu Huayuan, who had been a fool for more than 10 years, would return one day. Just as Xiao was hesitating, the curtain of the tent was lifted from the outside. The first to walk in was Chu Huayuan's father. Then he was dragging someone in. Xiao raised his eyebrows. When he saw that the person being dragged in was Turin, Xiao couldn't help but twitch the corners of his eyes. This subordinate of his was usually the most meticulous. Now that he looked like this, it was really a bit too horrible to look at. I'm so tired. Black impermanence, you should lose weight. You're so heavy. Chu Huayuan's father let go of his hand and swung his arm with a look of disgust. After being dragged all the way here, Turin, who had lost all face, wanted to faint. However, his master was right in front of him, so he could only struggle up and salute. However, when Turin bowed with his panda face, Xiao eyes twitched again. What's going on here? Xiao looked at the two with a faint smile. Without waiting for Turin to answer, Chu Huayuan's father straightened his chest and said, We were comparing notes. His martial arts were too weak, so he was defeated by me. Son-in-law, didn't you say last time that as long as I beat Turin or Huoling, you would let me fight? I'm not afraid that you won't admit it, so I brought him here. It was just that the way he brought him here was a bit special. He would never admit it. Is that so? Although this was the truth, Xiao still asked to give his subordinate a way out. Turin's face was darker than the bottom of a pot. If it weren't for the old man starting a fight without a word, he wouldn't have found his way. Although he didn't dare to kill him, in all fairness, the old man's martial arts were indeed above his. Especially towards the end of the fight, he clearly found that the old man's martial arts were more and more smooth. Perhaps it was because he hadn't used martial arts for many years, and was slowly becoming proficient. What the old man said is the truth. Turin's skills are not as good as others. Earth Spirit admitted it without hesitation. However, he still couldn't accept the fact that the old man had suddenly turned from a weak scholar into a powerful expert. Son-in-law, did you hear that? Turin admitted it, so you can't go back on your words. Otherwise you'll be a puppy. If you don't agree, I'll tell Kai that you're a person who doesn't keep his word. You can't entrust her with your life. You also know that Kai listens to me the most. If you don't curry favor with me, Chu Huayuan's father had already forgotten how cold and arrogant he was in front of his son before. But this wasn't the point. The point was, okay. In the end, Xiao still agreed, but not because of the old man's threat. As he said, no one was more suitable than him. He was a commander, so he couldn't be emotional. When he made this decision, Xiao felt that it was more difficult than the battles he fought in the past. He hoped that when the little fellow knew about this, she wouldn't be too shocked. Xiao looked at the man in front of him who pretended to be calm. In fact, his rolling eyes had revealed the turbulent emotions in his heart. He shook his head and laughed. Finally, he walked to the table and unfolded the map. Chu Huayuan's father instantly put away his ecstasy and turned serious. He walked to the opposite side of his son-in-law and listened carefully to his son-in-law's plan. Turin felt that he wasn't as receptive as his master. Until now, he was a little used to the old man's ability to change his face in a second. Perhaps his master had already seen through the old man's true temperament, but he didn't say it. Chapter 1454. Night had arrived. Inside the barracks, it was brightly lit. Chu Yang's father had changed into a new battle robe. It was black and shiny, making him look even more handsome. People who didn't know him nodded at him. He had the demeanor of a great general. Because of this posture and aura, the other generals all agreed with Xiao deployment. They didn't doubt Chu Yang's father's ability. However, only Turin and the others knew that the old man must be irritable. As expected, Chu Yang's father was hopping mad. So many people were surrounding him. Were they admiring a monkey? Go away. The men and horses had been arranged. 5,000 soldiers and 2 days' worth of rations. This was the most Xiao could provide. The previous rations had been burned. The mission this time was more difficult than any of the previous battles. Chu Yang's father not only had to divert Xiao Rant's men away to buy time for Xiao and the others, but he also had to take the opportunity to meet Wu Lin and tell him the next part of the plan. No matter which part it was very difficult. After Xiao gave his instructions, Chu Yang's father couldn't wait to jump on the horse and pull the reins. He turned to his son-in-law and said, "Wait for me to come back. When I come back, I want to eat braised pork trotters, braised pork ribs, sweet and sour fish, fermented rice balls." His hearty voice gradually faded away. His deep and sonorous voice didn't have the dullness of a heavy burden. Instead, it injected vitality into the people present. Could the jumpy old man really be up to the task this time? Turin blurted out as he watched the group of people leave. Yes, the little white dragon of the battlefield lives up to his name. Xiao lips curled up slightly. This wasn't blind confidence. It was his trust in the old man. A feast full of delicious food awaited his return. Let's go too. At Xiao command, the entire army set up camp. After half an incense stick's worth of time, if it weren't for the burnt firewood and the discarded pots and pans on the ground, it would be impossible to tell that a large group of people had once been stationed here. Prince Yi's mansion in the capital. Xiao Ho's eyes flashed as he held the letter that had just been delivered by the messenger eagle. Is there something that His Highness Prince Ying needs our help with? Lin Jiangdong came in and saw His Highness holding the letter in deep thought. He could not help but ask. Xiao Ho placed the letter on the table with a solemn expression. Imperial brother is now under attack from both sides, and is lacking in manpower. As for this prince's men, they are all on the front lines against Junlan. They can't be of much help, but they can still help without resorting to force. Lin Jiangdong immediately said, Lord, please instruct me. With one hand behind his back, Xiao Ho chuckled. Imperial father made a move against Imperial brother. That was an extremely stupid move. I wonder how he managed to sit on the throne for so many years. However, this also provides us with a handle. Have people spread this matter to the tea houses, gambling houses, brothels, and other places where news spreads the fastest. I believe that many people will like to hear the story of the emperor killing the loyal and good when the country is in danger, and ignoring the safety of the common people. Lin Jiangdong's eyes lit up when he heard this. Xiao Ho turned sideways to look at the garden full of flowers and trees, a mysterious smile on his lips. Imperial brother said in the letter that we can draw in the net. They had schemed for so long and could finally draw in the net. It was really exciting. Yes, this one will instruct people to do so. Lin Jiangdong was very efficient. After the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, he came back. However, when he came back, his prince was still in the same position as when he left. He felt that his prince's mood was a little strange today, but as a subordinate, it was not good for him to ask. Sir, how is the battle with Junlan? Xiao Ho turned around and asked with a faint smile. Ever since he handed over the army to his imperial brother, he hadn't asked about it. So without that layer of contact, he didn't know much about the Western front line. I heard that the battle wasn't very smooth at the beginning, but after they familiarized themselves with the terrain and fought with the enemy's generals a few times, they became familiar with the enemy's strategic deployment. They didn't lose anymore. Lin Jiangdong couldn't help but smile. Lord, the people that you personally trained naturally won't be bad. In addition to the generals sent by the King of England, once the adjustment period is over, the Junlan army won't be a problem. Xiao Ho nodded. He naturally didn't have to worry about his imperial brother's people, and the army that he trained wouldn't be too bad. He said without hesitation, send a letter to Lin Meng. Tell him that as long as he takes back the cities from Lulan, he must take them all. Don't spit them out to the imperial court. When the time is right, take down the people sent by the imperial court for me. In the letter, his imperial brother said that he might not be able to pay attention to the battle in the west for a while, and he hoped that Lin Meng could replace him for a while. Lin Jiangdong was stunned, but quickly agreed. This order was expected and reasonable, but he didn't expect it to come back so quickly. It must be because the Sichuan emperor suddenly attacked the King of England. Thinking of this, Lin Jiangdong faintly thought in his heart. The alliance of the three countries hadn't been completely resolved, but the internal strife had already started. But this could only be blamed on the Sichuan emperor. Lin Jiangdong accepted the order without hesitation and left. His distant gaze fell on the trees in the courtyard through the window. His slender fingers caressed the windowsill lightly, and his thoughts were somewhat scattered. In the past few months, his sleep had been getting worse and worse, to the point where he couldn't sleep at night. If Uncle Wang hadn't sent him a few bottles of calming wine, he might not have been able to hold on. In the years when his imperial mother passed away, he also suffered from this condition, but it wasn't as serious as it was recently. Last night he relied on the wine to sleep, but he had a dream. And the person he dreamed of was someone he didn't dare to think of. She was lying quietly on an unfamiliar bed, her face peaceful and rosy, as if she was just sleeping. He suppressed the excitement in his heart and sat by her bedside, not daring to reach out to touch her, for fear that she would disappear. Her light breathing and serene sleeping face made his heart calm down. At this time, he finally noticed where she was. Although it wasn't as luxurious as the prince's estate, it had everything that should be there, giving people a sense of security. There was even a faint medicinal fragrance in the air. Only then did he reach out to wrap his hand around her soft and boneless little hand, softly whispering, "Little rascal, I missed you so much." This sentence seemed to have been brewing for a long time, and it could finally be said. That pair of gentle and elegant eyes gradually turned red. "Exquisite Dyson Hongdo. Do you know how much I miss you to the bone?" The person on the bed was still sleeping quietly, but he didn't seem to get tired of looking at her 100 times, as he caressed her face again and again, unwilling to wake her up. He was afraid that he would wake up from this dream. Somehow he fell asleep. "Xiao Ho, live on, wait for me, live well, we still have." When he woke up, he was still in his room. There was no medicinal fragrance, and there was no little rascal. "What do we still have?" "Little rascal, I already have nothing." The person by the window held her forehead, arched her body, and slowly let out a whimper. If it wasn't for the pain in her heart, how could she be unable to control herself? But he didn't notice that the person in his dream had a slightly bulging belly under the quilt. If he had noticed, he would have understood her meaning. "Xiao Ho, you still have me, we still have a child." Chapter 1455. Inside the main tent of the heavily guarded barracks, the atmosphere was very gloomy. Xiao Ran's eyes swept angrily to the generals in front of him who hung their heads in silence. "How did you find out the news? There are only a few thousand people on the other side, and they don't give up Xiao Su's main army. Where did your eyes go?" The anger was suppressed, but Xiao Ran's raised tone still made everyone shrink back. One of the generals stood up and blamed himself. "I really didn't know that they actually disguised themselves as an army of 20,000. Your Highness, please punish me." "Is there any use in punishing you? People have already clamored under our eyes. Xiao Su has also disappeared with the main army. Do you think that now is the time to use people, so you are fearless? You can't even do such a small thing as keeping an eye on people. What's the use of keeping you?" Xiao Ran stared at these people. Why are the people from his mother's family a bunch of trash? Not only are they incompetent, but they are also a hindrance. Yan Shi on the side knew the reason for his anger. The battlefield changed rapidly. Once the traces of the opponent were lost, it would be difficult to guard against. Moreover, the enemy was outnumbered, but someone took advantage of such a big loophole. If word got out, how could His Highness stand in the three armies? How could he establish military prestige? Xiao Su's reputation was already great. Now with this matter, perhaps. Yan Shi thought of the rumors that had been spreading wildly in the Rising Wind Army recently. His Highness still didn't know about this. If he knew, he would be even angrier. "Go to the torture room to receive 30 canes. The remaining 70 canes will be given when the war stops. Get out. Now I don't want to see you at all." At this time, Xiao Ran's cold voice sounded, and Yan Shi had a bad feeling in his heart. Many of the people present were old generals. Originally, when they heard this young man degrading them so badly, they were already dissatisfied. Now, regardless of the occasion, he actually wanted to punish them. When something happened, his first reaction was not to save the situation, but to punish them. Many people were angry but did not dare to say anything. The enemy was so childish. No wonder the emperor would take action against the King of England at this time. Sure enough, if the upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. Although they thought so in their hearts, they still went down sullenly. Yan Shi was Xiao Ran's confidant. After everyone left, he immediately stepped forward to comfort him. "Your Highness, although the King of England has tricked us, he only has more than 10,000 people on his side. We don't have to worry about them at all. We only need to send more people to besiege the general who shouted. I think his thousands of people are nothing to be afraid of." After Xiao Ran heard this, his anger subsided a little. He thought about how he had just punished the general because of his emotions. He felt a little regretful in his heart, but he didn't show it on his face. "So you mean to say that this Highness made a big fuss over nothing?" Although the young man in front of him was not yet 20 years old, and he had followed him for a long time, Yan Shi still felt that this prince was not as gentle as before. He had become a little moody, and sometimes he could not figure him out. At this time he carefully said, "This general does not mean that. I just feel that at this juncture, it is not good." Xiao Ran also reacted, but how could he take back what he had said? He did not want to be known as a person who changed his mind constantly. Yanshi sensed his mood at this time from his silence and immediately said, "In fact, Your Highness does not have to blame yourself. They were not wrong to be punished. Moreover, 30 beatings is nothing to a military officer. Your Highness can rest assured." Xiao Ran thought so his mood improved a little. However, this was not the case. For a civil official, being reprimanded by the king was a loss of face. For a military officer, being punished by his superior was a loss of face. Xiao Ran's impetuousness for a while made many of his generals very dissatisfied. And this dissatisfaction would grow with the passage of time. "Then, Your Highness, what should we do next?" Yanshi asked. "Catch the one who shouted and see if we can pry Xiao Su's whereabouts from his mouth," Xiao Ran said sinisterly. Yanshi thought that this was the only way. Even if we can't pry it out, it doesn't matter. With him around, Xiao Su will not continue to hide. Father Chu sneezed and then rubbed his nose, his heart full of resentment. Who was speaking ill of him behind his back? How dare they? "General Chu, our trap has been set." A voice sounded from beside his ear. The person who spoke was the young man who had been beside Father Chu. "I'm not deaf. Why are you shouting so loudly? You scared me to death." Father Chu covered his little heart and glared at him fiercely. The young man felt wronged. "I'm just happy. A few thousand of us fooled tens of thousands of them. If this kind of result were to spread, our names would be resounding." Father Chu touched his chin, feeling that he liked to hear these words. "Come, little ears, praise us more." The young man's smile froze on his face. He wanted to throw his weapon in anger. He already said that he was not called little ears. His ears were just a little smaller. Now that his brothers had been infected by the general, he felt so wronged. Little Ears sighed, but soon he was dancing with joy again. "Not only did we successfully attract most of their forces, we even covered the direction of the main army. I heard that they still don't know that Lord and the rest are here. General, the formation you arranged yesterday was amazing." Who didn't like to hear praise? And it was all true. Father Chu was very pleased, his heart rippling, but he put on a serious face and raised his hand to knock Little Ears. "Don't be arrogant in victory, and don't be discouraged in defeat, okay? Don't be cocky just because of a small victory in front of you. Be like me, calm down." Little Ears' mouth twitched. Who was the one who wanted to hear praise just now? Who was it? "If you don't stand up, I promise I won't beat you to death." Even though he was mad inside, he still put on an obedient face and replied, "Got it. Good that you know. Let's go, their men are almost here. It seems that they can't wait to experience the obstacles I set for them." Father Chu chuckled, then led his men up the mountain. Not long after, the men who were ordered to capture Father Chu appeared at the foot of the mountain. Because the entrance was not big, only 20 to 30 people could enter in a row. When the people in front of them entered the first valley, the soldiers stepped down and pulled on the ropes buried in the ground. The soldiers in front of them were instantly tripped and fell like dominoes. At the same time, a neat row of arrows appeared above the valley and shot at the people below without warning. Those people didn't expect such an unforeseen event at all. They had already lost their heads out of fear long ago. Arrows blotted out the sky and covered the earth. Each and every one of them became a target. After the arrow formation, there were suddenly dozens of boulders as tall as 2 people on the top of the mountain. One after another, they rolled down with great momentum and deafening sound. The people in the valley were either trampled, shot by arrows, or crushed by the boulders. Not long after, Father Chu stood on the battlefield with his men. His gaze swept across the scattered corpses, and he snorted, "Get to work." The people behind him immediately went forward and stripped those people of their clothes. At the same time, they searched the battlefield and hid the people well. "Little Ears, take off some clean clothes. I'm a germaphobe." Little Ears' feet tilted, and he almost fell into a pit. Chapter 1456. Xiao Su stood at the top of the mountain, facing the night wind with a calm expression. Is there still no news of Ian? Turin had been standing under the tree with his master for almost a night. He thought that his master would not speak until dawn. Water Spirit said that she could not find the whereabouts of the young princess consort. Turin paused, pursed his lips and comforted him. Master, no news is good news. Look, isn't it the same with the old man? Since 2 days ago, their people and the young princess consort had been unable to contact each other. They suspected that the Sichuan emperor had done something and blocked the communication between the south and the north. Xiao Su's expression did not improve because of Turin's comfort. Instead, it darkened. The emperor had already made his move. The little fellow would not be spared. During this period of time, he had not received any news from her except after she defeated the Lulan army. This made him uneasy, but he believed in the little fellow's ability. With the herd of beasts and the army by her side, they should be safe. Now that one of them was in the north and the other in the south, there was no use worrying. Thus, the Earth Spirit began to report the news it had received today, hoping to divert its master's attention. There's a battle report from the west. They've successfully taken back 2 more cities. Now the Junlan army is making a final struggle. I think it won't be long before they're completely eliminated. Xiao Su nodded. He always trusted his third brother. Now that his third brother was in command, the Lulan army was not a problem. He could temporarily put the west side aside. Turin continued. Master, I didn't expect the old man to be so powerful. I thought that it was good enough that he could divert the enemy's attention with a few people. I didn't expect that he could cover us so well. When the old man left with the army, I was worried. Now that I look at it, I thought too much. As he spoke, Turin said somewhat indignantly, the old man was exceptionally talented when he was young. If it weren't for the accident, I'm afraid his name would have shaken the world. Now that he has returned to the battlefield, he's like a flood dragon returning to the sea. Xiao Ran and the others are nothing in front of him. Xiao Su chuckled. Everything in life has its own reason. Grasp the present. Turin nodded. Master is right. That's what Ian said. All right, let everyone rest for another 2 hours before we begin the operation. We can't let the old man tire himself out. When Xiao Su saw the fireworks in the air, the corners of his mouth curled up and his eyes sparkled. Turin also saw the flashing fireworks. It was the exclusive method of the fierce valiant cavalry. He was excited. He did not expect the old man to succeed so quickly. He did not dare to delay any longer, and immediately turned to pass down the order. The sky before dawn was always incomparably dark. Xiao Su held a faint smile. It had been a long time since he fought such a battle. It made his blood boil. He hoped that before dawn, Xiao Ran would still be able to sit still. When he received the news of the thousands of people suddenly disappearing, Xiao Ran's face was so dark that it could drip water. You mean those people disappeared from the face of the earth? He gritted his teeth and said word by word, his gaze seemingly wanting to pierce through the messenger in front of him. The messenger's shoulders trembled, his head almost touching the ground. Yes, when our people rushed over, there were no traces of the other party. We don't know where they went either. Furthermore, there was a recent autumn rain, and all traces on the ground were wiped away. This general could only send people to search around the valley. Xiao Ran was so angry that he laughed. Good, it's just a few thousand people. You can't even keep an eye on them with tens of thousands of people. You actually let them slip away from under your eyes. What should I say about you? None of the people present dared to make a sound. The place where they were beaten a few days ago was still aching. It was not worth it to hit the muzzle of the gun at this time. Reporting, we've found traces of the King of England's army. They're on Moon Lily Mountain. This loud shout relieved the cold atmosphere at this time. Xiao Ran's face looked a little better, but he still did not dare to be careless. He had suffered a lot in the past few days. He asked, are you sure it's Xiao Su's group? The messenger immediately nodded. The scouts saw the King of England himself on the mountain. And the number of people is also correct, a total of more than 15,000 people. Only then did Xiao Ran relax. He was most afraid that Xiao Su would quietly hide himself under his nose, and then jump out at some point to bite him. Against a fierce general like Xiao Su, the most fatal thing was to take him by surprise. Although he did not want to admit it, Xiao Ran had to admit that Xiao Su was the opponent he did not dare to underestimate. Now, don't put all your energy on that hooting commander. He's just a smoke bomb released by Xiao Su to attract our attention. Now gather the majority of the troops and move closer to Moon Lily Mountain, surround them, and don't let them escape. For the time being, hold back your troops and wait for my orders. To catch bandits, first catch the ringleader. As long as Xiao Su was defeated, the others would become a sheet of loose sand, and there would be nothing to fear. After Xiao Ran finished speaking, he called out the names of a few commanders, and had them immediately gather their troops and move out. On the battlefield, time was life. Xiao Ran did not waste any time, and after giving out the orders, he had someone bring over a topographic map of Moon Lily Mountain, and found a few people who were familiar with the place to begin a discussion. This time, he was determined to hit the target with one strike. Xiao Ran split off a portion of his troops to search for Chu Feng's father and his men, but no one would have thought that the target of their pursuit was leisurely brushing past them right under their noses. Chu Feng's father and his men had already successfully infiltrated Xiao Ran's army, and were laughably assigned a mission to search for him. When they accepted the mission, everyone was overjoyed. After the other party left, they rested on the spot without any scruples. Chu Feng's father chewed on a piece of grass, his head resting on his arm as he lay on the ground with one leg crossed over the other. His posture was lazy and unrestrained, and he looked up at the floating clouds in the sky, chuckling. The sky is blue, the clouds are white. Little Ear's lackey was serving tea at the side, but when he heard that, he looked up. Where was the blue sky and white clouds? It was clearly cloudy, but the general was right. Yes, yes. You sure know how to talk. Reward. Chu Feng's father took out a stone from his pocket and threw it to him. Little Ear's mouth twitched. Didn't the general just pick it up from the ground? However, he did not fuss over it, and after keeping it he asked, General, what do we plan to do next? Chu Feng's father raised a finger mysteriously. One word, wait. It was clearly 2 words. Wait for what? Little Ear asked humbly. Chu Feng's father rolled his eyes. Why was this kid so stupid? Forget it, he had better be kind and explain. Although Xiao Ran has been lured away by his son-in-law, he still left some men to keep an eye on Wu Lin's men, so we have to wait for the right time to sneak in and contact Wu Lin. Little Ear came to a sudden realization. Because they were in the search party and not the main attacking party, they had to wait for the right opportunity to strike. Little Ear, you're even stupider than Hollow. But at least he has the beauty now. I can only say that fortune favors fools. Little Ear. Who did I offend? Where did this Hollow come from? Ethereal suddenly sneezed and rubbed his nose. Who was talking bad about him? Chapter 1457. It was supposed to be daytime, but now it was as dark as night. Chu Qingyan raised her head and looked at the raindrops falling continuously. Her brows were slightly furrowed. This rain has been going on for 2 days. I don't know when it will end. Ethereal's voice came from behind her. She sighed softly. That's right. The weather changed so quickly that they were caught off guard. If it wasn't for the fact that they happened to be at the bottom of the valley, and had this natural mountain wall to block the rain, they might have been drenched. It was normal to travel on a rainy day, but she was not only leading the fierce army, but also a large group of beast soldiers. Needless to say, the eagle army couldn't fly at all in the rain. Although the beasts were fierce, they didn't like to go out in the rain. Moreover, they were dispirited and didn't have much energy. So she thought about it, and let everyone rest where they were. And there was a voice in her heart that kept whispering to her. Don't get wet, you'll get sick. The voice came out of nowhere, but she somehow managed to hear it. It was only later that she found out that this was the telepathy between mother and son, but this was a story for another time. It was also because of this heavy rain that their communication with the outside world was cut off. Until today, she didn't know what was going on with the big ice cube. Young Princess Consort, don't worry. Master will definitely be safe and sound. Ethereal seemed to see her worry and couldn't help but smile and comfort her. Hearing the unreserved trust of the person beside her, Chu Qingyan couldn't help but reveal a proud expression. The big ice cube had this ability to make his subordinates trust him so much. This was also an affirmation of his powerful ability. Her bright eyes rippled with a smile. Then she said, Jean Xian, do you still have that sour fruit to eat? Ethereal almost sprained his waist. Young Princess Consort, you seem to be particularly fond of sour fruits recently. Chu Qingyan, who was taking the fruit that Jean Xian handed over, revealed a very innocent expression when she heard this. I can't help it. I'm greedy. Ethereal rubbed his chin. Something was wrong with the little princess. Jean Xian, who was at the side, glanced at the remaining few small sour fruits in the bag. According to the fact that his master ate more than 10 fruits a day, he decided to pluck the fruits from those few fruit trees. And he would call a helper to help him. Thus, he silently turned around and called for Bai Yutong, and went to pluck the fruits. Hualing looked at the little princess eating a little sour fruit, and couldn't help swallowing a mouthful of saliva. The little princess always ate sour fruits. What if her stomach got sick from eating them? After resting for half a day, the weather suddenly turned for the better. The dark clouds dispersed and the sun shone brightly. The beasts were just short of singing and dancing. Chu Qingyan stood up and smiled like a flower. Let's go. Jean Xian glanced at the bags of fruits on the leopard's back. And that's enough. Let's go. Hualing decided that once he left the mountain, he would buy some delicious food for the little princess. Undelicious food. Let's go. As Chu Qingyan's group headed north again, the messenger eagle was released. Time flew by like a white steed and a few days passed in a flash. Xiao received the letter first. It said that their group was already heading towards them. Knowing that they were safe, the large stone in his heart finally fell down. This subordinate said that the little princess must have been delayed by something. Turin saw the gentle expression on his master's face, and couldn't help smiling as he said this. As soon as his words fell, the sounds of fighting came from the foot of the mountain again. Turin instantly frowned. Master, they're starting to attack again. In the past few days, it was like Xiao Ran's army had eaten explosives, continuously launching fierce attacks at them. Fortunately, his master had already made arrangements and played those people in circles. It was also thanks to the terrain here that one man could hold back 10,000. Even if the other side had several times more people than them, they didn't have much of an advantage. However, they wouldn't be able to last more than a few days. Just like his master said, although they had been playing hide and seek with the other side, once the other side figured out their tactics, they would quickly counterattack. In the end, it would become a battle of manpower. And in terms of manpower, there was a huge disparity. But this wasn't the most fatal thing. The most important thing was that their provisions were almost exhausted. Master, do you think the old master will be able to successfully bring the people back? Turin was a little worried. When this plan was carried out, the most crucial step was the old master. If the old master couldn't bring Wu Lin and the others back, then they could only be trapped on this mountain. They should have encountered some trouble. Xiao calculated the time and said without a change in expression, pass down the order. Hold on for a few more days. The more critical the situation was, the more it was when the morale of the army couldn't be faulty. Yet Xiao was as calm and composed as before, without the slightest trace of panic. This undoubtedly allowed everyone to drink a bowl of calming water. And they continued to fight without retreating. Flint and stone collided, swords and sabers clashed, and the battle cries were about to break through the sky. The heat waves were rolling, shaking the whole world. In this cool autumn season, one could feel the heat from afar. Xiao Ran stood on the top of the mountain, opposite to where Xiao was. It was just that they were separated by the whole battlefield. Although he couldn't take down the mountain on the opposite side, he believed that he could afford to waste time, but Xiao and the others couldn't afford to waste time. There was nothing edible on that mountain, and their provisions were also destroyed. As long as they dragged on for a few more days, they wouldn't be able to hold on. Just as Xiao Ran calculated the time and revealed a confident smile, his gaze froze as a black shadow suddenly appeared at the end of the horizon. That was Chu Qingyan led the Lai army, the beast herd, and the eagle soldiers quickly on the road. Because they were riding on the backs of the beast herd, they took the shortcut. This time, the shortcut was very difficult to travel by human strength. It was rugged with rocks and waterfalls, but these wolves, jackals, tigers, and leopards were all experts at climbing and jumping. It was easy for them to carry people, so they easily completed a journey that would have taken half a month in a few days. When Xiao Su received the letter, and thought that they were still thousands of li away, they had already reached the north. But because they hadn't received any news from Xiao Su, Chu Qingyan and the others didn't know the exact location of the army and could only look as they walked. At this time, Feng Lu's sharp eyes pointed in a direction and exclaimed, "Little Wangfei, look over there. There seems to be black smoke." In the distance, there was black smoke. In this broad daylight, if one didn't look carefully, it was hard to see clearly. "Let's go and see." Chu Qingyan stroked the piebald tiger under her. Her expression suddenly became serious as she said without delay, "To be able to see the smoke from so far away. It probably wasn't as simple as the smoke from a farmer's kitchen." Based on her experience, Chu Qingyan faintly felt that the smoke should have been produced by fighting. Thus, the group of people rushed in that direction in an imposing manner. As they got closer, Chu Qingyan felt her heart suddenly beat faster. She couldn't help but narrow her eyes. On the top of the mountain, Xiao Su suddenly raised a hand to cover his chest. As if he sensed something, he looked into the distance. Chapter 1458. In the distance, a large and densely packed black shadow moved over quickly like the wind. When they gradually approached, they heard many people gasping. "Oh my God! Are my eyes playing tricks on me? Isn't that a lion? I must be dreaming." A group of wild beasts. Ah, run! When Xiao Ran's attacking army saw this scene, fear dominated their rationality and they wanted to retreat. "What are you panicking for? It's just a group of beasts. What's there to be afraid of? Pick up your weapons. If you kill one, you'll be rewarded with silver. If you kill 10, you'll be promoted." Xiao Ran's voice rose from the ground, powerful and resonant. Those people who were retreating immediately stopped in their tracks, held their spears and weapons, and roared as they rushed towards the group of wild beasts. In this lifetime, joining the army to fight, wasn't it all to make a living and then stand out? Now that such a chance was in front of them, they had to fight even if they had to risk their lives. What if they succeeded? Xiao Ran heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that the army had stabilized, and was even more motivated than before. Wiping the sweat off his forehead, he turned his gaze back to the battlefield, intentionally or unintentionally searching for that figure. In the dark smoke, that crimson red became the most eye-catching scenery in the world. Water spirits' eyes, flawless jade skin, and all the beauty that belonged to women were covered up by the red battle robe. There were clearly thousands of people between the two of them, but she seemed to be right in front of him. However, no matter what his intentions were, she would never have him in her eyes. Xiao Ran gripped the reins tightly and wished he could grab her in front of him and question her fiercely. Did she have a heart? Why couldn't she give him a chance? Just as Xiao Ran was struggling in his heart, Chu Qingyan had already arrived at the bottom of the valley with her men. When she saw Xiao Su's military flag and this familiar tactic, she did not need to guess to know who was leading the troops. Other than her big ice cube, who else could fight well in such a disadvantageous situation where they were outnumbered? She curled her lips and her heart surged. She shouted, "Let's go up the mountain." To her, Xiao Ran's army was not important at all. She only wanted to see the person she had been thinking about. "Let's go, piebald tiger." She bent down and stroked her mount's head with a gentle smile. As if it could feel her excitement and joy, the piebald tiger roared at the sky and then ran up the mountain. Jin Xian, Hualing, and the others looked at each other and smiled. They immediately followed. When the horde of beasts appeared in his field of vision, Xiao Su's heart almost stopped beating. There was nothing more exciting in this world than seeing someone who was thousands of miles away suddenly appear in front of you. They were like scythes, and wherever they passed, not even a blade of grass was left. However, at this moment he only wanted to see the owner of the sickle. After being separated for dozens of days, he had suffered the pain of lovesickness. Now that the bitterness was over and the sweetness was coming, he couldn't wait any longer. The reason why this mountain could become Xiao Su's base of operations that was easy to defend and difficult to attack was because it had nothing but rocks. It was not easy to climb and it was easy to expose the target, so Xiao Ran's people were beaten down not long after they climbed up. Fortunately, Her horde of beasts were all good climbers. They carried her up smoothly. When she was about to reach the peak, a hand suddenly stretched out from above. It was white and slender with distinct joints. The palm was facing her. The lines on the palm made her instantly dazzled under the sunlight. It was as if something had drilled into her heart. It was itchy, swollen, and warm. She did not hesitate. She reached out and gave herself to him. Their palms touched and their fingers intertwined. The missing corner was finally filled. She only felt the hand that was holding her lift, and her whole body was brought up. The mountaintop slowly descended, and the people on the mountaintop became clearer. When the silver mask appeared in her vision, she jumped up like a monkey and hugged his neck tightly. "Don't talk. Kiss me." When she pounced over, he had already raised his hand to support her. After she said those shocking words, he did not hesitate to lower his head to cover her. At the same time, he circulated his internal energy and disappeared in front of everyone in the blink of an eye. Fire Spirit rode on the white tiger, and the smile on his face suddenly froze. He touched the back of his head. "Where is Master? Didn't I see him just now?" Sui was also at a loss. Where was my master? Only Turin, who had been standing at the same spot, looked at them coldly. "Why are you still standing there? Fight!" Everyone then regained their senses and fired at the enemy with all their might. What a joke! The horde of beasts they brought were not to be trifled with. As for the two of them, who had become hands-off shopkeepers, they were inseparable on the lush tree trunk. The little fellow's enthusiasm was beyond his imagination. However, the blood in his body was boiling more fiercely than hers. Their mouths were intertwined and they hated that they could not knead each other into their bones and blood. His clothes were half torn. And where was the aura of a commander from before? He was impatient and impatient. Where was the aura of a commander that was cold and abstinent? Chu Qingyan sat in his embrace and hugged his neck. She was like a fish that lacked water as she took in large breaths of air. Xiao Su hugged her waist and buried his face in her shoulder, breathing in the fragrance of her hair. Only now did he believe that the little fellow had finally returned to his side. She originally thought that the big ice cube would eat her up here. Although the situation was a bit special, she did not mind. The joy of reuniting covered all the shyness. However, at the crucial moment, he stopped, which made her a bit confused. "What is it?" she asked shyly. "There is no water here." It was not easy to clean it for her. Moreover, she was already too tired from rushing over. He could not only take care of himself. When Xiao Su said this, how could she not understand what he meant? She instantly blushed and raised her hand to hit his chest. Then she blushed and let him help her tidy up her clothes. It was easy to take off clothes but difficult to put them on, especially at this kind of time when absence made the heart grow fonder. God knew how much self-control he used to restrain himself. In the end, he was sweating all over because of the heat. He could only use words to distract himself. "Why are you here so soon? Did anything happen in the south?" From Xiao Ran's sudden attack, he faintly guessed that she would not be safe there. However, the situation was too tense, and he suddenly lost news of her. Chu Qingyan immediately recounted everything that had happened to them in detail. She mentioned how Yin Peak had submitted to them, and how they had successfully reclaimed the 3 cities. Xiao Su listened to her and his eyes shone. When she finished, he leaned over and gave her a deep kiss. He did not let go of her until she was out of breath. He caressed her face and laughed wildly. "You are indeed my person." She snorted and reached out to pull him into her embrace. She straightened her waist and bit his lips. Then she licked the corner of her mouth and said brightly, "You are also my person." The way that nimble little tongue licked her lips was as seductive as a peach. Coupled with her unintentional coquettish eyes, Xiao Su's eyes darkened. He lowered his head and heavily kissed her lips. "And it's yours. It's all yours." Chapter 1459. The sky was clean, and the breeze was gentle, bringing with it the refreshing charm of autumn. Some of the piebald tigers were circling around under the trees, while others were lying on the ground, looking like they were standing guard. If anyone dared to approach, they would slap them. Of course, everyone was busy fighting the war, so who would have the time to provoke these mountain kings? The leaves were lush, and the scene inside could not be seen clearly. Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan fooled around inside for a while before they quieted down, as if they were enjoying this rare moment of tenderness. She leaned on him and said lazily, "Is it really okay to just leave the stall to them?" Although she asked this, there was no worry in her tone. Xiao Su raised his hand to pinch her nose and chuckled. "They've been by my side for at least 10 years, so it's time for them to take charge." She nodded in satisfaction and turned around to find a comfortable position in his arms. She yawned and closed her eyes. "Then I'll sleep in peace." Xiao Su wanted to talk to her again, but there was already a steady breathing in his arms. He was slightly stunned. She fell asleep just like that, not giving him any face at all. In any case, they had just reunited. Then he smiled helplessly, but his eyes were filled with endless doting. She was probably too tired from the journey, and he felt a little heartache. He settled her down, wrapped his arms around her body, and closed his eyes in peace. Thus, not far away, the people were fighting in full swing, shouting about the cold weather. They were completely unaware that their two masters had left them to leisurely catch up on sleep. If they knew the truth, they would probably cry to the heavens. But the war still had to be fought, and the enemy still had to be chased away. In the evening, Xiao Ran's army was chased back to the foot of the mountain, and everyone began to reorganize and rest. Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan then appeared in front of everyone hand in hand. What a pair of golden boy and jade girl. They blinded thousands of eyes in an instant. Before they even ate, they were fed a few mouthfuls of dog food. The babies felt bitter in their hearts, but they didn't say anything. Originally, they were stationed on the mountain and did not have much food to satisfy their hunger. They had to rely on the dry rations that they had brought. However, as time passed, the dry rations were running out. Now that Chu Qingyan and the others had arrived, not only did they help to repel Xiao Su's army, they also brought a lot of dry rations, some rabbit meat, wild boar meat, and so on. The soldiers, who had not tasted meat for a long time, were moved to tears. A bonfire was set up, and the fragrant smell of barbecued meat filled the air, arousing everyone's appetite. In a corner, someone was nibbling on a fruit. Chu Qingyan felt that the smell of meat that she usually smelled was so disgusting now. It was as if she could distinguish the rank odor in the air. No, she had to eat a few sour fruits to calm herself down. As she ate, her gaze followed the person who was talking to everyone. He was like a gentleman, shining brilliantly. No matter when or where, he was always so dazzling. Xiao Su felt her gaze and turned his head to search for her. When he met her gaze, his brows smiled, and his eyes were full of tenderness and love. Chu Qingyan felt sweet in her heart. She felt that the sour fruits were also sweet. Because the two of them had sneaked away. The generals were now pestering Xiao Su to report the situation of the battle and the casualties. When Xiao Su escaped, he had already fallen asleep leaning against a tree trunk. Bai Yutong and the others were lying beside her, as if they were using their fur to warm her. Once night fell, the temperature in the forest would start to drop. Moreover, it was already autumn now, and the night was even colder. Xiao Su walked over and took off his cloak to cover her. Then he sat beside her and carried her in his arms. After finishing this series of actions, the little fellow was not woken up. She was still sleeping soundly. He could not help but feel helpless and amused. Was the little fellow too tired, or was her guard too low? After tormenting her like this, she still did not move? He thought that she was too tired, so he hugged her to sleep for the whole night. However, he seemed to have underestimated her ability to sleep. Ever since the day they reunited, she would always be half asleep with her eyes closed. As long as she found an opportunity, she would burrow into his embrace and fall asleep. If he had something to do, she would find a corner to sleep. Bai Yutong and the others would eagerly run over to be her blanket and pillow, wishing that they could let their mistress sleep on their stomachs. To Chu Qingyan, since there was her family's big ice cube, she did not have to worry about anything. She could leave Lai Jun to him, the beast to him, and Xiao Qi to follow by her side, so she could rest assured and continue her dream. 2 days later, Xiao Su finally felt that something was wrong. His heart was like this. Why was his wife so clingy to him? She was hugging the tree trunk to sleep all day. How could she continue like this? So after arranging the battle plan for the day, Xiao separated his person from the tree trunk and carried her into his arms. Then he sat down and looked down at the person in his arms. Her pink little face seemed to be getting redder and redder. Her long eyelashes fluttered, and she was extremely cute. She did not look sick at all. Instead, her skin was white and rosy, making her even more charming. Xiao slightly frowned. She did not look like she was sick. Then why did she sleep all day? At this time, he noticed that the little fellow was holding something in her hand. He took a look and saw that it was a small fruit that she had taken a bite out of. He knew that she did not like to eat dry food these days and had been eating fruits all day. Because he did not like to eat fruits, he did not try the taste. Seeing that she was eating so happily, he hesitated for a moment before taking a bite out of the place where she had bitten. The moment he took a bite, Xiao's face twitched. Could this thing be eaten? At this time, Jean Xian came over with a bag of things. What is this? Xiao put down the sour fruit and raised his eyebrows. Jean Xian opened the bag and revealed a row of green sour fruits that were different in size from his hand. Xiao felt that his teeth were about to fall out. He could not help but look at the person in his arms. Did the little fellow eat these recently? His eyebrows immediately wrinkled. Could it be that the little fellow was really sick? He immediately pulled out her wrist and put his fingers on her pulse. Although he did not know medicine, as a martial arts practitioner, he knew how to take a pulse. When he heard the sound of her pulse, Xiao's body stiffened. He was like a statue and his eyes did not even move. Jean Xian's heart was in his throat when he saw this. Your Highness, is there a problem with Master's body? This voice pulled Xiao's attention back. He said in an erratic tone, Call Ethereal over quick. Jean Xian immediately turned around and dragged Ethereal over. Originally, when Jean Xian pulled him over without a word, Ethereal felt that something was wrong. When he saw his master holding the little princess in a daze, he felt even more uneasy. He immediately went forward and carefully placed his hand on the little princess's pulse. Ha! Ethereal retracted his finger and smiled like a spring flower. Master, the little princess is pregnant. Chapter 1460. Chu Qingyan woke up amidst the joyous noise. She looked blankly at the bouncing Xiao Lai. Big Ice Cube. What happened to Huoling and the rest? Just as she pointed forward, she paused. Oh my God, what happened to her Big Ice Cube? Why was he so happy? Big Ice Cube, don't scare me. She grabbed his sleeve and whimpered. Xiao lowered his head and held her hand. His eyes were still filled with ecstasy, although it was a lot more restrained than before, but I'm pregnant. Chu Qingyan was dumbfounded. Oh my God, water must have entered Big Ice Cube's brain. Seeing the person in his arms looking like she had seen a ghost, Xiao finally realized what he had said. He said, I was wrong. You're going to be a father. Chu Qingyan's eyes widened. Oh my God, Big Ice Cube's brain must have been caught by a door. No, she had to call Ethereal over to check on Big Ice Cube. Why was there something wrong with Big Ice Cube the moment she woke up? What the hell had happened while she was sleeping? Just as Chu Qingyan was struggling to get up from his arms, Xiao finally regained his senses. Seeing her worried expression, he realized that he had done something stupid. He immediately pulled her back into his arms and wrapped his arms around her from behind. His palms landed on her abdomen, and he rested his chin on her shoulder. His voice was gentle and affectionate. You're pregnant. I'm going to be a father. The person who was still worried about whether or not her Big Ice Cube had taken his medicine was stunned when she heard this. She didn't even dare to move. Only when she felt warmth on her back did she slowly relax. She murmured, I'm going to be a mother? Yes, we're going to have our own children. Xiao turned her body around until they were face to face. He lowered his head and pressed his forehead against hers. His voice was unbelievably gentle. Chu Qingyan followed his gaze and looked at her flat stomach. She couldn't help but reach out to touch it. Heat swirled in her chest and rushed to her eyes. I can't believe that there's a little life here. It's in my stomach. Her eyes were slightly red and sparkling. She was helpless, happy, and touched by the arrival of a new life. A pair of large hands covered the back of her hand, as if he was wrapping her little hand in his palm. Then they were both caressing their child. A child, he said. Our child. When it's born. You. Our child. Our child. And the unfair treatment that Big Ice Cube had received when he was young had always been a thorn in her heart. He was such an intelligent and handsome youth. Why was he not liked by others? She pursed her lips and smiled. Her smile was as moving as the spring breeze blowing through the clear water. She nodded in agreement. Okay. We'll love it well. We won't let it suffer any grievances. A father's love and a mother's love will not be lacking in its childhood. Xianmo's eyes were full of smiles. They were bright and dazzling. It was even more captivating than the morning sun and the sunset. Yes, we won't be absent. If it's a daughter, you'll teach her the zither, chess, poetry, calligraphy, and painting. I'll teach her etiquette, music, archery, defense, and mathematics. Our daughter will definitely be as beautiful as you. Chu Qingyan continued his words. Her eyes were full of smiles. If it's a son, I'll teach him how to conduct himself. And you'll teach him everything you've learned. I want him to be like you and become a hero in the hearts of the people. I'll pour all my love into him. The childhood that you missed, I'll make it up to our son. A small version of Big Ice Cube would definitely make people's hearts ache. However, when the day came, she would only want to stuff that stinky brat into her stomach and remake him. Of course, this was a story for another time. Cough cough. A cough was heard in an attempt to attract the attention of the two prospective parents. Unfortunately, the two who were about to become parents didn't notice at all. They continued to immerse themselves in their endless imagination. And the few people who had been in the background for a long time finally couldn't bear it anymore. Master, this is pregnancy stabilizing medicine. You have to let the young princess consort drink it while it's hot. Master, do you want to eat some small fruits? This subordinate brought by Yutong to pick a bag of them. Young princess consort, what do you think of this quilt? This subordinate just made a feather quilt. You definitely won't feel cold when you sleep at night. Master, this subordinate just went to pick a bird's nest. I'm going to give it to you to nourish your body. Ethereal was holding a bowl of medicine. Jean Xian was carrying a cloth bag. Hualing was holding a quilt. Sui was carrying a basket of bird eggs. Snowflake Cake was biting on a pheasant. Xiao Hai threw a giant snake to the ground. And Glutinous Rice Ball was rubbing his body against her, wanting to warm her up. Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su looked at each other. Then they silently separated and stood up. Then they lightly coughed. That pair of retarded parents from before was definitely not them. Heavens! However, an unexpected person rushed over. What? I heard that I have a grandson. A person whose face was covered in soot jumped in front of Chu Qingyan with a whoosh sound. He seemed to be very unhappy. Xiao Su had just stepped forward to protect the little one. But the moment the other party spoke, he retracted his hand. He stared at the person who had already turned into soot, and the corner of his mouth twitched uncontrollably. Chu Qingyan's reaction was no less than Xiao Su's. She swallowed her saliva and pursed her lips at the charcoal in front of her. She called out tentatively, "Father?" Charcoal answered happily, My darling Kai Kai. Quickly tell father. Are you going to give birth to a grandson or a granddaughter? Father can't wait to hug you. Father, daughter remembers that you should be with mother in a safe place right now. In an instant the atmosphere froze. With Chu Qingyan as the center, the atmosphere was fully released and dispersed in all directions. Ethereal and the others immediately took a step back and raised their hands high, indicating that this had nothing to do with them. Mr. Chu finally sensed that the atmosphere was not right. He blinked and swallowed his saliva. Then he wanted to retreat to Ethereal's side to hide, but Ethereal and the others were faster. They immediately took a few steps back and distanced themselves from the battlefield. Father, if you confess, you'll be lenient. If you resist, you'll be punished severely. Mr. Chu stopped in his tracks. He turned his head and wanted to cry, but no tears came out. He accused the person behind her. It's my son-in-law. It's my son-in-law. Chu Qingyan narrowed her eyes and looked at him. Then she turned to look at her big iceberg and asked word by word, "What's going on?" Xiao Su looked at the person walking over step by step. Cold sweat trickled down his forehead. It looked like he was definitely going to take the blame for his father-in-law. In the end, Mr. Chu squatted in a corner and drew circles. Xiao Su watched as Mr. Chu drew circles. Son-in-law, pregnant women tend to have bad tempers. Father has experienced it before, so I know very well. Son-in-law understands. After that, the two of them sighed in unison. Sigh. Chapter 1461. Father Chu's appearance brought good news. After meeting up with Wu Lin, he used the trap set by Xiao Su to successfully return to the army. The two armies met, and their forces grew stronger. You don't know how much effort I put in to lure those bastards away. I was almost disfigured. Chu Machen's father complained tearfully. As he cried, he stole glances at his daughter. He wanted to win her sympathy, so that he could be forgiven. However, his daughter had a heart of stone. After hearing his words, she became even colder, making him feel like he was digging his own grave. Ethereal smiled and comforted him. "You've worked hard, old master." Little Ear, who was at the side, added, "You were the one who stepped into the pit when you heard that the little princess consort was pregnant." Father Chu stomped his foot. "Little Ear, if you don't say anything, we can still be friends." Little Ear moved to the side and looked at the sky. Everyone couldn't help but laugh. Xiao Su shook his head and then signaled Wu Lin to report the situation. "General, we lost more than 2,000 people. More than 3,000 soldiers were injured. Now we have nearly 50,000 men." When Wu Lin said this, his head gradually lowered. There was a hint of hatred in his voice. Those were the people he brought up personally, but now, Wu Lin's emotions affected everyone present. Their eyes turned red. "Don't worry, I will avenge them," Xiao Su said to everyone present in a serious voice. Everyone nodded. Father Chu stopped making a fuss. The smile on his face disappeared and he became serious again. From Big Ice Cube's explanation, Chu Qingyan found out that her father had regained his consciousness. However, when they met just now, he still had that innocent look on his face, which made her somewhat suspicious. Now that she saw her father looking so serious for the first time, she could not help but believe their words. Her father had regained his consciousness. To her, today was a double blessing. She had a child with Big Ice Cube, and her father had finally found his lost self. This was the greatest fortune among all the misfortunes. After everyone calmed down, they began to discuss how to deal with the future. Time passed quickly just like that. Daughter, Daddy wants to have a grandson soon." The person in front of her was really not worthy of praise. She had just said that he was serious, and now he was acting like a 3-year-old child asking for candy. Chu Qingyan rubbed her forehead and said good-naturedly, "Father, no matter how anxious you are, the baby still needs 10 months to be born. Furthermore, this is your grandchild, not your grandson." "Oh," Mr. Chu replied. Then he continued to lick his face and blinked. "What if I want to see it as soon as possible?" "Father, it's already late. You can go and dream." Chu Qingyan smiled and winked at Little Ear. Little Ear immediately came over and pulled Chu Qingyan's father to rest. "General, we still have to fight tomorrow. You have to quickly recover your energy. Otherwise, what will we do if we can't beat the enemy?" Yes, I need to rest." "Hey, daughter, you have to take good care of my grandson." "Good night, my dear grandson." General, it's your grandson." "Little Ear, you talk too much." After watching her father leave, Chu Qingyan started to look around for the Big Ice Cube. After the meeting, Chu Qingyan could clearly feel that her Big Ice Cube's aura had become much colder. However, when her father interrupted, she lost sight of him. "Jean Xian, did you see His Highness?" Jean Xian nodded and pointed in a direction. His Highness was talking to Ethereal just now. He should be over there now. "All right, there's nothing for you to do here. Go." She waved her hand and walked over. When she got closer, she realized that it was the place where the soldiers usually cooked. At this moment, a tall figure was half squatting to light a fire for a stove. She rubbed her eyes, unable to believe that it was him. Hearing the sound, Xiao thought that ethereal had returned. Without turning his head, he said, I still need to boil it into a bowl of water. Go and help me gather some firewood. The footsteps walked away, but after a while, they walked over again. He reached out and the firewood was placed in his hand. He focused on boiling the medicine while the person standing behind him passed him the firewood. There was a faint fragrance in the air. Finally, Xiao felt that something was wrong. He turned around and saw the person standing behind him. Chu Qingyan held the firewood and smiled at him with her head tilted. Xiao immediately stood up. He did not even care about the stove. He took the firewood from her hand and could not bear to scold her. He pulled her into his arms and whispered, Didn't I tell you to stay here? Why did you come here? The baby said that he missed you. She laughed softly, easily stopping him from scolding her. Xiao hugged her tightly and sighed. What should I do? I'm completely under your control now. You're not convinced. She raised her voice. I'm willing. He chuckled and hugged her even tighter. She curled her lips into a smile, then leaned into his embrace and asked worriedly, Did you run into some trouble? I saw that you were not in a good mood just now. The provisions can't last more than 2 days. He wanted to hide it from her, but he knew that she would find out sooner or later. He might as well tell her directly, so that she would not have to guess and worry. It was not good for her health. Chu Qingyan was mentally prepared, but she still frowned when she heard it. She only found out a few days ago that Sichuan Emperor burned their provisions. He really wanted to kill them all. If not for the Big Ice Cube strategy, the army would have been defeated. Don't worry, there's always a way out. Xiao patted her back as he comforted her. Chu Qingyan nodded gently. If he could stand tall, he could carry the sky that was falling down. If he could bend down, he could boil medicine for his wife and child. This kind of flexible person would definitely lead them to victory. Since ancient times, evil could not win over good. Just as Chu Qingyan was obediently letting her baby's father feed medicine, Hualing rushed over. What happened? Xiao asked, his hands not stopping. Hualing took out a letter and said to the two, This was sent by young Master Hua's family. It's for the little princess Consort. Oh. She was a bit surprised. What kind of urgent matter did this fellow send her a letter at this time? She took it and impatiently opened it. When she finished reading the contents, she couldn't help but facepalm. This fellow really warmed her heart. Did something happen to the shops in Jiangnan? Xiao leaned over. He thought that she was vexed and couldn't help but ask with a raised brow. Chu Qingyan waved her hand and said with a smile, No, Jiangnan's business is good. It's just... She paused and her eyes sparkled. Sleeve asked if we were lacking food. She stored quite a bit for us. She said it's enough for the 3 armies to eat for a year. Hualing's eyes lit up. The Hua family's young master really sent charcoal in the snow. Xiao held her hand and said with a low laugh, As expected, there's always a way out. She just found out that she was pregnant, and Sleeve sent a big gift. It really was too much of a coincidence. She rubbed her stomach and held his hand back. She said with a laugh, This gift really came at the right time. Chapter 1462. Hua Xiuli did not expect that her assistance would come at such a coincidental time. She had personally escorted the rations, but because the battlefield was dangerous, she only had time to deliver the rations to the people sent by Xiao before returning to Jiangnan. However, when she delivered the rations, she received a reply from her good friend, which made her very surprised. When she returned to Jiangnan, she poked her husband. Her face was full of grievances, but her tone was full of joy. Qingyan is pregnant, and she even cheated me of 100,000 rations, saying that it's New Year's money for the baby. What the hell? I didn't even take a look at my godson or godson, and she gave me such a big red packet. I'm at a loss. Sob. Miser, you have to make a decision for me. Although she said that, she was very happy for her good friend. The rations were originally bought by her good friend, and she was only helping to manage them. Now they were returned to their rightful owner. However, when she saw her miser, she could not help but act coquettishly. Unexpectedly, Lin Fingyi did not say anything and picked her up by the waist. walking into the room like the wind under his feet. "Hey, what are you doing?" It was broad daylight, and they could not be seen by the servants. Her dignity was at stake. "Didn't you want me to make a decision? Listen to me, we'll have babies too. If they have one, we'll have two. If they have two, we'll have three. Our numbers will surpass theirs, and in the future, the red packets they give us will definitely be more than the red packets we give them. So, let's work hard and not be left behind by them. Otherwise, there will be red packets from us in the future." Lin Fengyi finished his words without blushing or skipping a beat. Hua Xiuli felt that his words were very reasonable. Although she did not know what was wrong, she still nodded. However, when she was pressed down on the bed, she finally knew what was wrong. "Miser, you bad person, treating me like a sow." And a few more. "Wait, that's not right. You bastard, get off me. You sob. The red and fragrant tent rippled with waves. Every minute of the night was worth 1,000 gold. Oh no, making babies. Every minute was worth 1,000 gold. Chu Qingyan naturally didn't know what kind of result she brought to her good friend. At this time, she was smiling as she counted the provisions. The provisions prepared by the richest man in Jiangnan were even better than those offered to the imperial court. This time, their soldiers and horses would definitely be able to eat until they were strong and healthy. After receiving the letter from Hua Xiao yesterday, Xiao Su made a prompt decision. He gathered all the troops and rushed down the mountain. Now they were no longer in the valley. Although there were tens of thousands of troops less than Xiaoran, it was not as big as before. At least they could fight head-on with the other party. Because their actions were too unexpected, they were able to smoothly occupy one side and contend with Xiaoran as an equal. As the sun rose, Xiao Su received a piece of good news. Lu Guang sent a message saying that he has successfully subdued the Rising Wind Army. Now they are still biding their time. As long as Master gives the order, they will immediately revolt. Everyone in the tent was excited when they heard the news. This way, their numbers were basically equal to Xiaoran's. Very good. Xiao Su curled his lips into a smile. He ordered all the soldiers to reorganize and wait for the opportunity to fight. As if they saw the dawn of victory, everyone valiantly walked out of the main tent. There were no outsiders in the tent. Xiao Su personally poured a cup of hot water and handed it to the person beside him. "Drink a cup of hot water to warm up your body." Chu Qingyan's lips twitched. Although it was already autumn, it shouldn't be this cold, right? However, Big Ice Cube was also concerned about her. She took the cup and drank a mouthful under his gaze. Ever since Big Ice Cube knew that she was pregnant, he didn't let her do anything. From brewing medicine to serving porridge to changing clothes and shoes, he didn't let anyone help him. He did everything himself. It made her wonder if she had already lost the ability to take care of herself. After she fought for her rights several times to no avail, she could only give up and watch him busy in front of her. She also felt sorry for him. At this juncture, not only did he have to pay attention to the overall situation and lead troops to fight, he also had to take care of himself. It was too hard. However, a certain someone was willing to endure it. Every day, he would lie on her stomach and greet the unformed baby. It was only 1 or 2 months. How could he hear the baby's voice? However, Chu Qingyan did not want to tell him the truth and dampen his enthusiasm. Seeing that he was behaving like a big kid, she was also affected. She would talk to the baby for no reason. Thus, the two of them were like a pair of retarded parents. They would gather together and talk to the baby. "Big Ice Cube, you should rest for a while. These 2 days I haven't seen you sleep at all. You're as busy as a spinning top. Even if your mind can take it, your body can't take it." She put down the teacup and reached out to tug at his sleeve, looking at him worriedly. Once on the battlefield, it was common for him to not rest for several days and nights. However, when he met the little fellow's water spirit's gaze, he changed the words in his mouth and nodded according to her wishes. However, the little fellow was insatiable. She wanted him to rest under her eyes, afraid that he would secretly go busy again. In the end, Xiao Su lay on the bed and rested his head on her lap. From bottom to top, the person on top of his head looked at him with a smile. He couldn't help but reach out to wrap his arms around her waist. It was still so small. It was hard to imagine that this delicate body was pregnant with a life, a child connected to his blood. Ian, how are you feeling today? She gently massaged his shoulders and smiled. Ethereal said that at my age, I would start to vomit. However, I don't know if it's because the baby understands me, but other than being addicted to acid and lethargy, there are no other symptoms. It's very stable. Xiao curved his lips. He leaned over and kissed her stomach through her clothes. It's very obedient. Very good. When it's born, I'll reward it well. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips and smiled. She raised a hand to caress her stomach. The familiar fragrance made him sleepy. Slowly, he closed his eyes and fell asleep. She had been sleeping recently and didn't feel sleepy at all. Seeing this, she leaned against the bedpost and quietly looked at the person in her arms. There was a happy and satisfied smile in her eyes. Family. What a beautiful word. In Prince Yi's manor in the capital, Lin Jiangdong brought a few pieces of news. First, Chu Qingyan was pregnant. Second, Junlin's army had been defeated. Third, Sichuan Emperor was critically ill. Xiao, who was watering the flower pot, heard the news. He casually put the kettle on the windowsill and took the cloth towel from the servant to wipe his hands. There was a smile on his face. It's all good news. Lin Jiangdong also smiled. The wrinkles on his face were almost like chrysanthemums. Yes, after waiting for so long, we finally got it. He knew who he was referring to without saying it. Xiao chuckled. Write a letter to Imperial Brother, and tell him that it's time to return to the capital. Yes. Chapter 1463. When Xiao Ran received the battle report, he suddenly felt a little dejected. After experiencing so many unforeseen events, there was always a time when he could not hold on any longer. He did not expect that after forcing Xiao into such a desperate situation, he would still be able to escape. Xiao Ran had cut off his rations, cut off his escape route, and was still able to peacefully contend against him as an equal. Sometimes Xiao Ran couldn't help but wonder if the heavens were on his side, helping him all the time. Your Highness, their men are stationed 30 miles away from us. There are a total of 50,000 soldiers and horses. When Yanshi saw Xiao Ran like this, he did not want to bother him with these things, but at this juncture, he had to be more vigilant. Xiao Ran chuckled. You missed out. They still have a beast army. That was a terrifying force that could fight against 5 enemies by himself. Yanshi was startled when he heard this, and fear appeared in his eyes. He did not forget that 2 days ago, the horde of beasts had passed through like locusts. Wherever they went, not a single blade of grass was left alive. It was still a clean death under the sword, and there was no pain. However, if he fell into the beast army, he would not be able to live or die. Xiao Ran noticed Yanshi's expression, and a hint of bitterness appeared at the corner of his mouth. Humans could fight against the heavens and fight against humans, but creatures like beasts, you could not communicate with them. The moment they came up, they would tear and bite. They were incomparably vigorous and could not be understood. In the end, they could only passively take a beating. Qingyan, oh Qingyan, what did he do to deserve such devotion from you? Then Your Highness, what should we do now? After all, Yanshi had led the army for many years, so he quickly put away his emotions and asked respectfully. Although they have a horde of beasts, strictly speaking, we still have a lot more people than them. So, we must take advantage of this opportunity to catch them all in one fell swoop. Has the gunpowder arrived? The dejection only lasted for a moment, and Xiao Ran quickly pulled himself together. Thinking that the batch of gunpowder that he had asked someone to make should have arrived, he relaxed for a moment. Yanshi immediately nodded. I've received the letter. It will be delivered this afternoon. Very good. Now we have nothing to fear even if they have a horde of beasts. Xiao Ran revealed a cold smile. Water Spirit had sent 2 letters, both of which contained important news. Junlin's army had been defeated and had now retreated from Sichuan. Hong Jianhua and Lin Meng led their troops to take over all the cities in the west. The imperial court's troops were all subdued and posed no threat. Lin Meng led 30,000 troops to guard the city, while Hong Jianhua led the remaining 50,000 on the way to support them. The other letter was from the capital, and contained only a few short lines. Consort, you made her move. The emperor was critically ill. She began to draw in the net, and quickly returned to the capital. Chu Qingyan didn't have any problems understanding the first letter, but the last letter made her extremely confused. Although she could understand every word, she couldn't understand when they were strung together. When there was no one around, she grabbed Big Ice by the collar and approached him. She snorted, "Are you and Princey hiding something from me? Could it be that this is the backup plan you were talking about?" In Xiaosu's eyes, her slender fingers didn't seem to be grabbing his clothes. Instead, they seemed to be resting on his chest, tickling him and making him restless. He raised his hand to cover her small hand, and rubbed the back of her hand with his fingertips. His eyes sparkled. "Yes, before the alliance of the 3 countries, we had already planned it. But we didn't expect the invasion of foreign enemies, which delayed a lot of time." Seeing him admit it, her pretense of being mean immediately dissipated. She blinked her big eyes curiously and couldn't wait to ask, "Come on, tell me, what's the plan?" "It's not the right time yet." Xiaosu pinched her nose. When he saw her accusing eyes, he couldn't help but chuckle. "You're so bad, so bad." She slapped his hand away and pretended to be on the verge of tears as she caressed her stomach. "Baby, look at your father. He's always bullying your mother. When you come out, you must properly teach your father a lesson on behalf of your mother." Xiaosu found it funny. He pulled her into his arms and tapped her lips with his finger. He smiled and said, "Tell on me to the baby? You're so cute." Humph! Coaxing her like a child. She opened her mouth and bit his finger. Then she proudly showed off to him. However, when she met his eyes that instantly darkened, she realized what she had done. Just as she loosened her mouth and was about to spit out his finger, he had already lowered his head and covered her lips with his, taking away all her breath and heartbeat. Sure enough, the evils brought on by oneself were the hardest to bear. The sun was already setting over the mountain, ready to set. Xiaosu gently patted the sleeping person on the bed and greedily looked at her sleeping face. Finally, he stood up and walked towards the main tent. The little fellow was already pregnant, so it was best for her not to participate in many things. This was also the reason why he didn't tell her about his plan. When he arrived at the main tent, everyone stood up. "Sit down. What's the situation now?" Xiaosu raised his hand and gestured. All the generals sat down again. Wu Lin stepped forward, his face full of joy. "An hour ago, our men had already found their way to the back of the enemy's army and snatched their provisions. Those that we couldn't snatch, we destroyed them. We can finally hold our heads high. We've avenged the grudge of snatching their provisions." Xiaosu nodded. His generals didn't attack unless they attacked them. If they attacked them, they wouldn't let them off easily. Chu Yang's father also jumped out and smiled slyly. "Didn't you send troops to patrol today? I accidentally found something and my heart itched, so I snatched it to take a look. Good fellow, several large carriages of gunpowder. No wonder so many people want to be the king of the mountain. It's so fun to snatch it." Everyone silently ignored Chu Yang's father's last few words. "That gunpowder was used by Xiao Ran to deal with us. I never thought that the old man would snatch it away. It really is satisfying." Everyone laughed loudly. Xiaosu was very satisfied and his voice became a bit lighter. "The provisions have been lost and the gunpowder has been stolen. This time they will definitely fight to the death with us, so we don't need to be polite with them." With the provisions and gunpowder gone, with Xiao Ran's personality, he would definitely be furious. In order to appease the army, he would use all of his firepower to attack them. Otherwise, if this dragged on, it wouldn't be good for them. Lord is right. Although we don't have as many people as them, we have nothing to fear if we go all out. Lu Weiyan straightened his back and spoke in a firm voice. Once these words were said, everyone agreed. "Who said we don't have as many people as them?" A clear voice came from outside the tent, making everyone look outside. The first to come in was Hualing. He happily pulled the curtain to the side, and several figures appeared in front of everyone. At the same time, there was a loud voice. "Lon Manor's Manor Lord has arrived." Chapter 1464. A beautiful woman in a sky-blue dress leisurely walked over. She was gentle but not lacking in magnanimity, beautiful but not lacking in heroic spirit. Every frown and smile of hers carried an air of elegance and confidence. It was rare for someone to be able to fuse these two opposite temperaments together in such a harmonious manner. After the woman walked in, an extremely young and handsome man strolled in. He was dressed in a luxurious white robe and had a calm expression on his face. Two servants followed behind them, a man and a woman. The man was calm while the woman was lively. The generals present did not recognize these people and looked at them warily. Their hands were already at their waists, ready to draw their swords with a single order. The woman did not seem to sense the tense atmosphere. She looked around but did not find the person she wanted to see. She crossed her arms and glanced at Xiao. "Where's my little Qingyan?" "Resting." "Why are you here?" Xiao raised his eyebrows and gestured with his hand. Everyone withdrew their hands, and their vigilance turned into curiosity towards these people. If he remembered correctly, this lawn manor should belong to the pugilistic world. Why was it here? Sima Jun did not hesitate to find a seat and sat down. Ji Linyang also sat down beside her silently, as if there was no one else in his eyes other than the woman in front of him. "I happened to pass by, so I came to take a look." Sima Jun looked left and right and snorted. "His Royal Highness, you're quite strict with your troops. If you didn't mention little Qingyan's name, I wouldn't have been able to enter. The military camp is like this. May I know what Manor Lord meant by that?" Although he was not familiar with these people, they were all the little fellow's friends. Xiao had someone serve them tea and receive them as VIPs. Sima Jun took a sip of tea and her eyes lit up. To be able to drink Bilyuakun at a time like this, it was obvious that they were treated well by her family. Sima Jun nodded in satisfaction and had a better impression of Xiao. She did not beat around the bush and directly stated her intentions. "I heard that you were in trouble a while ago and sent people to receive you. I didn't expect that no one would come. Instead, I heard that you led your troops to war, so I came to see if there was anything I could help with." She was just passing by a moment ago, but in the blink of an eye, she changed her attitude. Everyone was very surprised by this person who spoke without thinking. However, Ji Linyang and the others were very calm. It was obvious that they were already used to it. Xiao raised his eyebrows. Just as he was about to say something, the curtain of the tent was lifted, and a figure rushed in. "Sima is here?" He could not hide his surprise. Sima Jun saw that the person was her good friend. She was about to stand up and greet him when someone beat her to it. Xiao draped the cloak over the little fellow's shoulders and tied the straps. He admonished her dotingly. "It's getting colder and colder. Why didn't you wear thicker clothes when you went out? You're about to become a mother." Chu Qingyan stuck out her tongue and obediently allowed him to tidy her up. Huoling said that Sima was here. "I was too happy and forgot." Everyone covered their eyes after being fed a mouthful of dog food for no reason. The scene was too beautiful and they did not dare to look. Sima Jun poked the person beside her. "Did you see that? The gentleness of a man of steel is really enviable." Ji Linyang raised his brows. "Oh, you like this?" Sima Jun could not help but tremble at his malicious tone. She chuckled. "I'm just joking. Don't take it seriously." She suddenly seemed to wake up. "What did you just say? A mother? Little Qingyan, you're pregnant?" She leaped over so quickly that no one could see her movements clearly. It was only when she stood in front of Chu Qingyan that everyone realized that this person's qinggong was simply godly. When Chu Qingyan saw who it was, she immediately pushed her big ice cube to the side and happily held Sima Jun's hand. She nodded vigorously. Yes. Sima, long time no see. I missed you so much." Sima Jun reached out and hugged her. She jumped up happily. Long time no see, long time no see. I'm going to be a godmother." "Haha, yes, you're going to be a godmother. I can't use words to describe how happy I am right now. Please allow me to laugh 3 times. Ha ha ha." Xiao, who had been ignored by his wife, and Ji Linyang, who had also been abandoned by his wife, looked at each other and saw the helplessness in each other's eyes. Before the two of them could hug enough, They were pulled apart by their men. Sima Jun glared at her petty man. Thinking that her good friend was pregnant now, she reluctantly sat back down. Chu Qingyan seemed to have gotten used to her big ice cube's invisible dominance. She sat down obediently and then couldn't help but exclaim in surprise, "Sima, it's chaotic here. Why are you here?" She then turned to Ji Linyang and asked, "Master Ji, why don't you take care of Sima?" Sima Jun choked on her tea. Ji Linyang was very pleased with her words and nodded solemnly. "I'll take good care of her in the future." Sima Jun glared at him but couldn't hide her reddened ears. "It's none of your business." Ji Linyang nodded seriously. "Yes, it's none of my business." Sima Jun almost spat out a mouthful of blood. "Forget it, I won't stoop to his level." She remembered the important matter, and took out a token from her pocket, and had Tanning hand it to her good friend. "This is..." Chu Qingyan took the token with the word blue written on it, puzzled. Sima Jun brushed the dust off her clothes and said with a smile, "This is the blue token. It can mobilize the troops of any place in the Blue Manor. However, there's no need to mobilize them. I've already brought them here, and they're ready to listen to your orders at any time." Huh. Chu Qingyan didn't know how to react. Shan Guang, who was standing behind Sima Jun, said with a smile, "My master heard that you're short on manpower, so he transferred half of our men here. He hopes that they can be of help." Chu Qingyan's eyes moistened. She was extremely touched. She turned to her good friend. "I appreciate your kindness, but I can't accept this token." Sima Jun waved her hand heroically. "You don't have to be so polite. Just take it as a meeting gift from me to my future godson and goddaughter. You can return them to me when you're done with the war." Her tone was firm, so Chu Qingyan had no choice but to accept it. Her heart was still surging with emotions. At this time, Ji Linyang also took out a token and handed it to Chu Qingyan. "This is the token of the Ji family. 20,000 troops are ready to be dispatched at any time." Not only Chu Qingyan and the others, but even Sima Jun was stunned. She clearly hadn't expected him to do this. "Linyang, what are you doing?" Ji Linyang smiled. "Of course it's a meeting gift for my future godson and goddaughter." The generals present were stunned by the generosity of these two people who gave away troops without a word. What kind of friends did their Wang Fei make? If they weren't sending provisions, then they were sending troops and horses. This was too valiant. Chapter 1465. Sima Jun and Ji Linyang were very efficient. As soon as Chu Qingyan received the token, she was immediately sent outside the camp. There was a simple reception banquet at night. Chu Qingyan was very grateful for the help the two of them provided. "Sima, I really don't know what to say about what you've done." Sima Jun waved her hand and said indifferently, "You've also helped me. There are a lot of idle people in the manor. They're all holed up in the manor and grass is about to grow out of their heads. I didn't kick you here to help me loosen them up, so that they won't keep nagging by my ear. They're about to grow calluses." As she spoke, she even pretended to dig her ears. Chu Qingyan knew that she was only saying this to make her feel better. The Blue Manor's business was so big that she had too much work to do. How could she be so free? Chu Qingyan knew that if she continued to speak like this, she would be too pretentious. Chu Qingyan filled Gu Ruoyun's cup with wine, then took her own cup and toasted Gu Ruoyun. "I will use tea as wine to celebrate our reunion." Who was it that said that all meetings in the world are reunions after a long separation? Let's toast to this reunion. Sima Jun took her cup and clinked it with hers. Then she drank it all in one gulp. Hualing, Turin, and the others sat at another table. They knew that they couldn't drink too much because of the upcoming battle, but they couldn't help but feel happy. The atmosphere slowly became lively. There was only one place in the tent that was the quietest. Xiao Su and Ji Linyang looked at each other in silence, their eyes dark and unreadable. "The Ji family, is it the Ji family I'm thinking of?" "That's right, it's the Ji family you're thinking of." One asked calmly, while the other answered calmly. The Ji family, that was a place that lived in legends. Xiao Su had always thought that it was just a legend, a place that people imagined. It didn't exist in the world at all. I wonder if it's a boy or a girl. Why don't I get someone to buy them both? You won't only have one child anyway. What nonsense are you saying? Laughter and banter rang out, causing the two of them to turn their heads. Xiao and Ji Linyang looked at the two women whose faces were flushed. They smiled and shook their heads. Then they raised their cups. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. One was an ambitious and ruthless person, while the other was a young master in seclusion. Originally, they had nothing to do with each other, but because of these two women, they became acquainted. A greeting of nice to meet you is a friend. At this moment, the atmosphere was relaxed, as if the coldness just now was just an illusion. With Sima Jun and Ji Linyang's help, Xiao was like a tiger that had grown wings. With Feng Qijuan in hiding, he could easily suppress Xiao Ran on horseback. After a battle that dealt a heavy blow to Xiao Ran's army, Xiao directly handed over the command to Hong Jianhua, who had rushed over with his army. This prince needs to make a trip back to the capital. The army will be under your command. Initially, he planned to return after dealing with Xiao Ran's army, but looking at the current situation, there was no need for him to stay. Hong Jianhua nodded and took the military order. Xiao left the main tent after explaining the follow-up and walked into his own tent. Inside the tent, the little girl was sleeping soundly. He silently sat down on the bed and waited for the cold air to dissipate before reaching out to touch her face. I need to go back and take care of the matters in the capital. You stay by Manor Master Sima's side. Once everything is taken care of, I will send someone to pick you up. He spoke in a low voice, filled with longing and reluctance. If she wasn't pregnant with his flesh and blood, he would have kept her by his side no matter what. If he didn't need to put an end to those matters, he wouldn't have left them at this time. Afraid of waking her up, Xiao didn't say anything else. He only looked at her like an infatuated man, reluctant to part. When it was about time, he tucked her in before silently leaving again. Manor Master Sima, I'll leave Ian in your care. Xiao met Sima Jun after coming out of the tent, and said sincerely. Sima Jun sighed in her heart. Such a proud and unyielding man was willing to lower his noble head for her good friend. This must be true love. She sighed in her heart, but it didn't stop her from agreeing. Don't worry, I won't let you down. Of course, she had to be able to keep him. Thank you. Sima Jun watched Xiao departing figure, and sensed someone approaching from behind. She scoffed and asked without turning her head. If you were the King of England, would you do the same? Are you saying that I would leave you behind and walk alone? The person behind her chuckled. That would only work if you were pregnant with my child. Sima Jun was speechless. She bent her elbow and stabbed behind her. The person behind her dodged nimbly and grabbed her elbow. She fell into his arms and couldn't break free. Be good and don't move. I'm thinking about how to answer. Ji Linyang dragged her up the tree trunk. The dense branches and leaves blocked their figures, making it very convenient for them to do bad things. Sima Jun was too lazy to move. She leaned in his arms and played with his black hair lazily. Answer me properly, or I won't go easy on you. Ji Linyang smiled. Let's make it clear first. Don't lose your temper. Sima Jun seemed to know that he wouldn't say anything nice. She raised her eyebrows but still nodded. If it were me, I would make the same decision as the King of England. I'm not the only one. I believe that any man would choose to do the same in such a situation. Pfft, Sima Jun rolled her eyes in annoyance. Can't help it. Who would bear to let his pregnant wife follow him on a long journey? Ji Linyang shrugged. Do you want to hear my opinion? Ji Linyang's hand that was stroking her hair paused. It was rare to see her so serious. He smiled and said, I'm all ears. The King of England's return to the capital must have something to do with the old emperor. Do you think little Qingyan will want to be absent at such an important moment? Even if she is pregnant and needs to take care of the baby's health, she should at least have the right to know. If you make the decision for her without saying anything, even if you do it for her sake, do you think little Qingyan will accept it? Sima Jun said indignantly. She looked straight at him, as if she had immersed herself in the role. The person in front of her was the detestable and self-righteous person. Ji Linyang hurriedly smiled. Okay. If we encounter the same situation in the future, I'll definitely tell you. Be good and don't be angry. Sima Jun was successfully appeased. A sly look flashed across her eyes. This was the effect she wanted. She wanted to see if he dared to make decisions on his own in the future. Happy, she leaned over and kissed him on the cheek. She chuckled and said, "That's a good boy." Ji Lingyang's lips curved. How could he not know what she was thinking? He just adhered to the principle of not saying it out loud. The most important thing was to make his wife happy. Gentlemanly demeanor and manly dignity were not important. Since I'm so obedient, shouldn't you give me a reward? Ji Lingyang didn't wait for her to respond. He hooked her body and leaned over to kiss her deeply. Meanwhile, a slender figure lifted the curtain of the tent under the tree and flashed past as fast as the wind. No one noticed. Chapter 1466. Xiao Su selected a group of men and horses and set off in the direction of the rising sun. They traveled for 3 days and 3 nights in such a rush. One day they stopped to rest. Xiao Su heard his subordinate report that the carriage following behind the group was still there. Xiao Su felt that something was wrong. He waved his hand to have Turin bring the people over. Soon the people were brought over. This group of people all wore black bamboo hats, except for the woman at the front, who wore a snow-white hat. "May I know why General has invited us here?" The person standing next to the woman who looked like an attendant was the first to speak. When Xiao Su heard the voice, his sharp gaze instantly fell on the silent woman. Then it quickly turned into helplessness. He clasped his hands behind his back and said indifferently, "How long are you going to hide this from me?" When Chu Qingyan heard his words, she knew that she had been seen through. She puffed up her cheeks and took off the bamboo hat that covered her. She asked curiously, "I had Jin Xian and Sui follow behind me. The people around me were all unfamiliar faces. How did you guess that it was me?" Xiao Su saw that she didn't know her mistake at all, and was still full of curiosity. He couldn't help but feel a headache coming on. He waved his hand to dismiss everyone. It was best not to let others see him discipline his wife. He walked in front of her. "Do you think there's anything on you that I can't recognize?" "Rogue." She blushed and raised her hand to hit his chest lightly. This indirectly told her that he didn't rely on others to recognize her, but because he recognized her. Xiao Su chuckled and held her fist. Then he pulled her into his arms and sighed. "Why are you here?" When this topic was brought up, Chu Qingyan's smile immediately disappeared. She put her hands on his chest and pushed hard to leave his embrace. She crossed her arms and looked at him with a half-smile. "May I ask His Royal Highness, how will the crime of abandoning his wife and child be dealt with?" Xiao Su's head started to hurt again. As expected, he couldn't avoid this question. "You're pregnant. I was afraid that your body wouldn't be able to take it. I didn't mean to keep you here." Abandoning his wife and child? He didn't dare to shoulder the responsibility, nor could he shoulder it. "It's understandable, but unforgivable," she said lightly, and then turned to leave. "Where are you going?" Xiao Su quickly pulled her back. "You don't welcome me here, so of course I'll leave on my own. Otherwise, what if you send me back with the excuse that it's for my own good? My feet are my own, you can't do anything about it." She snorted and continued to walk forward. She had only taken 2 steps when she was pulled into an embrace. He had no choice but to compromise. "Since you're already here, how can I send you back?" This little fellow had deliberately rushed for a few days before giving herself away. Even if he was angry, he couldn't send her away with peace of mind. He could only feel at ease keeping her by his side. Chu Qingyan secretly gave him a thumbs up, and then snuggled in his arms. "I missed you so much." At this time he should give her some honey. Xiao Su found it a little funny when he heard that. This little guy was getting better at coaxing people. Since that was the case, he wouldn't hold back. After a long kiss, she hid in his arms and didn't come out. It looked like she was shy. During the break, all the accomplices stood in a row. The main culprit was holding a fruit and nibbling on it with a smile. The accomplices looked at each other. It seemed like they could only protect themselves. Ethereal was the first to speak. Little Master is very healthy in little Princess Consort's stomach. Even during the journey, he didn't show any discomfort. He's very obedient. It can be seen that he's a master that doesn't make people worry. Jean Xian followed up. Recently, little Princess Consort's appetite has been very good. Other than sour fruits, she also ate a lot of vegetarian and meat dishes. She ate at least 2 bowls of rice every meal. Hualing was unwilling to be left behind. There's a thick wool blanket in the carriage, so it's very stable. Even if she lies on it and rolls around, there won't be a problem. Xiao listened to them talk for a long time, but he didn't say anything or express his opinion. However, it could be felt that the cold air around him was slowly retreating. Thus, everyone persevered and told him everything that happened on the road. It's been hard on you. In the end, Xiao left these words and left. When the accomplices who had been prepared to be punished heard this, they instantly cried. Mommy, they finally escaped. Hearing the cheers behind him, Xiao couldn't help but smile. He wasn't an unreasonable person. He knew that they had disobeyed his orders because of the little fellow. They had taken good care of her along the way, so it could be considered atonement. You're not angry anymore? Someone pulled on his sleeve. Xiao turned his head and saw a pair of bright and fawning eyes. He had a kind of realization that as long as she acted coquettishly towards him, even if he was full of anger, it would dissipate in an instant. He held her hand and slowly strolled on the grass. I can't bear to. I can't even wait to dote on you. How could I bear to be angry with you? Moreover, compared to your smile, no amount of reprimand would yield to it. Then I'll accompany you back to the capital? Good. Hearing this, Chu Qingyan smiled happily. I didn't have the chance to accompany you when you experienced injustice in the past. This time, I don't want to be absent again. I didn't participate in your past, but I'll accompany you to the end in your present and future. After a few days of hurrying, when they stood outside the gates of the capital again, Chu Qingyan felt as if a lifetime had passed. She still remembered the last time she had passed by this place. She had been forced to flee. She had been in a very sorry state, and because of that incident, she had lost a close friend. Looking at the city gate in front of her, Chu Qingyan had mixed feelings. However, for the big ice cube, the feeling was even more complicated. Xiao stared at the endless road in front of him, and a kind of homesickness circled in his heart. His cold fingers suddenly touched a warm softness, and then that softness wrapped around his palm, and the warmth passed from his fingertips to the depths of his heart. He couldn't help but turn his head, only to meet those eyes that were filled with worry and encouragement. He suddenly realized that he wasn't alone this time. The corners of his mouth slowly rose, and his fingers regained their warmth. He firmly held her hand and walked inside. Let's go. Her heart that had been raised relaxed because of his words. Chu Qingyan smiled and nodded. Okay. Before reaching the capital, other than eating and sleeping, the group spent all their time on the road. Now that they were here, Xiao gave the order to abandon the carriage and walk. They disguised themselves as ordinary people and passed through the heavy traffic. No one recognized them as the valiant couple that had become famous in this short period of time. The road to the imperial palace wasn't long, but it still took some time. Chu Qingyan quietly accompanied him. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw the complicated emotions in his eyes. Every step was slow, as if he was thinking about the past. When they finally stopped at the gates of the imperial palace, Xiao tightened his grip on her hand and said disappointedly, 10 or 20 years isn't short, but the memories left to me here are more bleak than happy. It's okay. We still have a lifetime to experience happiness, and I will always be with you. She held his hand and raised a bright smile. Xiao returned a smile. Yes, I still have you, and our child. Let's go and say goodbye to the past, and then start over. She pulled his hand and said with a gentle smile. Okay. He nodded. The two slowly walked through the palace gates that had been opened for them. Chapter 1467. When they walked through the palace gates, everyone bowed respectfully to Xiao. Although Chu Qingyan was extremely shocked, she knew that now was not the time to ask questions. She lowered her head and followed him into the palace. Although she hadn't entered the palace many times, she still remembered every blade of grass and every tree here. She didn't know if it was because of her mentality, or because it was late autumn, but she felt that everything in front of her had a bleak and somewhat oppressive feeling. Xiao Su held her hand tightly and asked in a low voice, "Are you not feeling well?" She had always admired the big ice cube's meticulous and sensitive mind. She shook her head lightly. "I'm fine." Xiao Su touched her face and hand. After finding that there was nothing wrong with her, he felt reassured and continued to lead her inside. When they reached the palace where the Sichuan emperor lived, a familiar figure appeared in their line of sight. When she saw the gentle expression on his face, Chu Qingyan suddenly felt a bit sad. After not seeing him for half a year, he seemed to have lost a lot of weight. If Zhijing saw him like this, her heart would probably ache immensely. "Imperial brother, imperial sister-in-law, welcome back to the palace." Xiao Ho cupped his hands in greeting to the two with a warm and sincere smile. Xiao Su returned the greeting, a trace of a smile in his eyes. "It's been hard on you these days." "Imperial brother, what are you saying? This is what this younger brother wants to do." Xiao Ho waved his hand, then said, "I also have to congratulate imperial brother and imperial sister-in-law. Soon you will have a child. I can also be an uncle." There was a bit of envy, but more blessings. Chu Qingyan's face was slightly red. She lowered her head and gently stroked her belly. She replied, "It seems that the baby will be doted on by many people in the future." "Of course." Xiao Su hugged her waist as he spoke matter-of-factly. Xiao Ho smiled. Looking at the sky, he reminded her, "Consort Yu is in the palace feeding imperial father medicine. It's just the right time to go now." Although she didn't know what role Xiao Ho played in the Big Ice Cube's plan, she could guess a thing or two from their conversation. Chu Qingyan felt a lot closer to this gentle Xiao Ho than before. She did not know if it was because of Big Iceberg, or because of Zhijing's relationship with him. "Then let's go." Xiao Su's voice returned to normal as he said indifferently. Xiao Ho nodded, and led the two to the palace. "How is he now?" "His illness is incurable, only his mind is still clear." Xiao Su's, but he didn't say anything. There was no obstruction along the way until they reached the door of the palace. Xiao Ho signaled to the guards, and the door opened. Xiao Ho extended his hand to invite them in. He didn't stride in until Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan had walked in. Consort Yu was feeding the emperor medicine. Her charming and gentle eyes flashed with malice. As long as the emperor drank this bowl of medicine, he would be able to die. Then, her son would be able to successfully ascend the throne. From then on, she would be able to sleep peacefully. At that moment, a white light shone in from the door, then quickly disappeared. She frowned and turned around, but saw a group of people she didn't expect. "You, how did you get in? Someone come. Capture these traitors." Imperial concubine Moon immediately shrieked, pointing at them and angrily shouting. Sichuan Emperor, who was lying on the bed, struggled to open his half-closed eyes. When he saw Xiao Su and the others standing in front of him, his emotions fluctuated violently. "Xiao Su, you unfilial son. How dare you come back?" "Father, if eldest brother and the others don't come back soon, I'm afraid they won't make it in time to send you off." Xiao Ho, who was standing at the side, said gently with a faint smile. Sichuan Emperor and Consort Yu finally noticed Xiao Ho. Consort Yu hurriedly stroked Sichuan Emperor's violently heaving chest. She turned around and scolded, "Princey, His Majesty has treated you well. How can you say such heart-wrenching words?" Xiao Ho chuckled and looked at Imperial Concubine Yu with eyes like torches. "Imperial Concubine Yu, I think no one knows better than you what has happened to Imperial Father's body." His words successfully froze Consort Yu. She twitched the corner of her mouth. "What are you talking about, Princey? I don't understand a word you said." Sichuan Emperor took a deep breath and glared at Xiao Ho. "You're also an unfilial son. Don't try to sow discord here. I didn't expect you to be a wolf in sheep's clothing. You're really an ungrateful wretch. How dare you team up with this evil creature? Guards, arrest these two unfilial sons." However, no one obeyed the order. Sichuan Emperor and Consort Yu finally realized the situation they were in. Sichuan Emperor's lips trembled. He stared at the people in front of him in disbelief. What did you do? Chu Qingyan stepped out from behind her big ice cube. She was surprised to see the emperor lying on the bed in such a terrible state. The person who used to be so domineering and oppressive to the big ice cube would one day end up in such a state. She had to admit that good and evil would eventually be repaid. Heaven's way of reincarnation. If you don't believe it, look up and see who will be spared by heaven. It's not what we did. It's what this good concubine in front of you did. If it wasn't for her help, I'm afraid we wouldn't have been able to take control of the imperial palace. Xiao Ho looked at the crazed emperor in front of him. He suddenly felt a sense of pleasure and coldness emerged in his eyes. Sichuan Emperor snorted coldly and looked at them with hatred. Without waiting for Sichuan Emperor to speak, Xiao Ho spoke to Consort Yu, who was curled up and trying to reduce her presence. Consort Yu, Imperial Father's illness was diagnosed by you. All of the medicine was personally brewed by you. Right now we as his sons have some doubts about Imperial Father's illness. We want to ask if you dare to drink the medicine in your hand? I know that this medicine is used to nourish the body. It's fine for a normal person to drink it. Don't you think so? Consort Yu's hand trembled, and she almost spilled the medicine on her hand. She suppressed her trembling and said, "Why should I drink it just because you say so? Xiao Ho, you're not sick at all, right? You've hidden it from His Majesty for so many years. What are your intentions?" Sichuan Emperor originally didn't believe that the person sleeping next to him would do anything to him, but other people didn't know. He was closest to Consort Yu. When he saw her trembling hand, his eyebrows jumped. He suddenly thought of everything that had happened since he started feeling unwell. His body instantly stiffened. He reached out to grab Consort Yu's hand and said sternly, "You are drink it for Zhen to see." Consort Yu thought that she had successfully diverted attention to Xiao Ho, but she didn't expect Sichuan Emperor to suddenly grab her. She looked at him in a daze and then bit her lip in silence. Seeing her reaction, there was no need to verify anything. The last glimmer of hope was extinguished the moment Sichuan Emperor let go of her hand. "Your Zhen has treated you well. I wish I could dig out my entire heart for you. Why did you do this?" Consort Yu's medicine bowl fell to the ground. The black soup covered the ground and the air was filled with a bitter smell. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.